All right, and I think we are live. We'll do it live. How is everybody?
Doing good.
Live.
Hello. All right. Well, it is Saturday, April. No, it's not April. It's July the 22nd. We are live for CoCo TALK number 18, the nation's leading premier live weekly talk show about the Tandy color computer. Just ignore the fact that it's the only live color computer talk show. It is still the leading. We are leading out on all of our non-competitors right now. So
we have all of the top 5 spots.
It is a glorious thing, and I am joined by my cast of characters here. From right to left here, we'll do this in Arabic. We've got Richard Lorbieski. We have Grant Leedy. We've got Neo from The Matrix, David Ladd. We have L. Curtis Boyle and Mark Overholzer. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And Jerry Adams just joined us in the chat.
Rick just mentioned he can't join because he's having some DSL problems. So
bummer. Jerry Adams says, I have my popcorn and my TRS-80 ready. And here we have Simon Jonason is trying to call in right now. And hello, Simon. Do you read? All right. So the main focus for today's CoCo Talk is going to be Nick Marentis' favorite thing on the planet, and that is OS-9. What is OS-9? Well, it is the premier multi-user, multitasking operating system for the Tandy color computer. And we're going to look at it today. We're going to play with it today. We're going to demystify OS-9. And we're going to bring it down to the human level, where if I can use it, then any idiot can use it, because I am not just any idiot. And hey, Davey Mitchell is here. Hello, Davey. Thank you for calling. Somebody else right now is trying to call into a group call, and that's not going to work. That might be Jay or somebody. Whoever's trying to call us right now, you need to call me directly. I can't add a group to a group. So just try to call me directly on Skype. Hello, Jerry Adams. So before we get into the main focus of today's talk, the little segment I like to start with that usually falls completely flat on its face is, how's everybody doing and how was your week this week and what exciting or not exciting happened to you this week? Anybody want to kick off with that?
Just work.
Just work.
Still rush season. I'm still swamped. I'm still working overtime.
Jerry Adams.
One brief aside. I can add. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis. Go ahead.
I just remember one thing. Actually, I'm so overburdened with work. I am actually having Bill Noble coming over tomorrow. I used to work with him in this industry years ago, and he's actually not as busy as he used to be with his work, so he's actually coming by tomorrow to kind of get back up to snuff on things, and he'll start helping me on occasion. When I get too busy, he'll do some work in the evenings and weekends for me. So.
Oh, wow. So you're going to
And that's harkening back to our old CoCo days. When we wrote NitrOS-9, we worked together. We did it at work. So.
And that's also upholding the current CoCo tradition of using cheap Canadian labor whenever possible. So,
Canadian labor.
So
Grant, go ahead. 12K, because that's way more interesting than my little story.
Hey, Steve Powell. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, actually, I got it installed. It was actually very easy after watching Steve's CoCo surgery here. I think that was on Tuesday night. So
It's
I was
been
able
a
to
fun
get
week.
the Sierra games up and running and everything. So I'm happy.
Yeah, that was kind of a first for me too, doing any type of under the hood surgery on a CoCo of any kind. So seeing how it wasn't that complicated was kind of nice, you know, and I'm actually kind of tempted to maybe buy a couple more of these Triad boards since they're newer and they run cooler to hopefully prevent my CoCo from overheating and things like that. So it's also got me thinking of a creative way to maybe put some type of fan inside the CoCo, like how the PCs have fans that exhaust heat out of them. Maybe figure out a creative way to jerry-rig a fan into the CoCo.
A lot of people did do that back in the day, especially if they had 1 and 2 meg upgrades.
Yeah. So, it's kind of interesting. There are some things you can do to a CoCo that are not super complicated and don't require a soldering iron, this is one of those. So if the easiest way to say, if I'm kind of the measuring stick on the complexity of something. So if I can do it, any idiot can do it. So, so there you have
Grant,
it.
like he was asking if you needed any special tools and stuff like to snip the capacitors. I said I've used toenail clippers on occasion. Works
Yeah,
fine.
I use little screwdrivers, but I had actually ordered and they just came in. So I have my IC pullers, and I was hoping to use these to pull out my CPUs, but they weren't here in time. So this is a traditional IC puller, right? This one would probably work very well on the CPU, right? I'll make my camera big for just a second here, right? So here's a normal IC puller, right? So this is kind of good. And then I got this other one here that I think is perfect for the gimme. And that's this little guy right here. And this little guy here would probably grab into each of the two corners of the gimme and pull him out pretty easily as well. And so both of these were like $6 that I got off of eBay. So cool stuff. So, but yeah, in the meantime, a screwdriver and a steady hand, a steady yet delicate hand, will definitely work. Cool stuff. So I did a little bit of CoCo surgery this week. Sounds like a Grant added RAM. He did his first upgrade. That's very cool. Grant. Rick Adams, welcome to the call. Hopefully you'll stay on this time. And what else is going on? Anybody else have anything cool happening in the world of retro this week?
Well, the only thing with me is I finally got some of my components in that I can start assembling my updated mouse adapter.
Oh, very cool.
Cool.
And so this is basically a circuit board that's going to allow you to plug a PS2 style mouse connection from like the old PC mice into a little doohickey that will then plug into a CoCo.
Yes.
And this will go straight to the 5 or 6 pin DIN of the joystick port?
Yes.
And so it'll be a standard resolution. It won't be the super high resolution, but with the newer software that will support high resolution, that'll still work well, right?
Well, since it's just basically converter, if you have like the Radio Shack's high-res joystick interface, you have the modified one that was, I think, was it Color Max or Max 10, whichever one came with that modified version of the Tandy's
CoCo Max.
adapter.
CoCo Max 3.
Or the new high-res routines, it doesn't matter. This is just an in-between. I'm using the full 12 bits that the DAC supports, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So
that'll even work with Eric Avrilek's new Color Max 3 patched for the high-res routines that Sock and Nick did.
Yes, that's actually what I've been using to test it.
Okay.
Very cool.
So that's pretty much it.
Okay. And so my week this week in the world of retro has consisted with first bringing back my 2 CoCo 3s to life, which are very helpful and necessary for us to show off OS-9 this week. So that was kind of cool. Had a neat interview with Mike Rowan. I'm not sure how many of you got to see that, but that was cool. That was neat, and that's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I had pitched that to Mike a little while ago, saying, listen, what you do is pretty cool, and I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. I don't know if the podcast wants to interview you, but I think this is something that's more visual. It kind of lends itself to a video interview, and I'd love to see how you do what you do, you know? And I learned quite a bit, and of course, he makes it look easy. Because he knows what the heck he's doing. But there are certain benefits to having some, user-friendly software like a lot of those Mac tools that he's using. So it's kind of inspired me to want to, and I now have inherited a couple of Macs that are functional. So I'm going to probably start messing around with some Mac production software similar to what he does. I don't have his same level of talent or capabilities, but the software will empower me to suck a little less, I guess. So
yeah, the loops thing, like the GarageBand he's showing off, that's what I used for doing the recordings I did for you as well, except I'm pumping in live, guitar tracks. But I was also using loops and the drum machine and the automatic drummers and stuff too. So there's a lot of cool stuff. In fact, I didn't know that's what Mike was using. We could even collaborate. I could provide guitar tracks for some of his synthesizer stuff. So
there you go. Yeah. Well, he also plays guitar, but yeah, I'm sure it'd be nice to have other musicians because, you know, when you're making your own music, it's only going to be that way, right? So it's going to be the way you play. To get somebody else to come in and do a lead on top of something is going to be a different lead because it's a different, you know, musician.
That does help. I mean, I have done collaborative stuff before. When we did the theme song for Twit TV's In Other News podcast that only lasted 2 years and then Ayaz left, but it was a collaboration between Ayaz playing bass, Dwayne, whom you've met before, playing electronic drums, and then me providing 2 guitar tracks. So that was all collaborative that way.
Yeah. Cool stuff. So, yeah, so that was kind of fun. Yesterday I recorded an official gameplay video of the Pac-Man transcode. And that was pretty good. I enjoyed playing that. That was kind of fun. I realized after I had already uploaded the video that I played the wrong version. I was still playing the 1.0 version that wasn't patched to fix the gimme sparkles. And so I do have that version. And when I first tested it, I tested it on that one. But when I loaded up the disk image, I loaded up the wrong one. So I actually showed the sparkles in my video. And by the time I was done, I'm like, screw it, dude. I'm not recording this crap again. Deal with it. But it's a fun game. I mean, I know we looked at it when we were interviewing Glenn, and Glenn was talking about it. So it's one thing to kind of look at it, but it's another thing to actually sit down and actually play it, you know. And it was actually very fun and rewarding to play the game. I mean, it's Pac-Man, but Pac-Man is kind of a fun game, and it's kind of got the cool factor that it's now Pac-Man on a CoCo, you know.
Yeah, the CoCo is actually turning into an old version of MAME right now. We've got an official Donkey Kong, official Pac-Man, official Space Invaders.
Yeah, and so today, and so here, last night I recorded Bedlam, right? So you remember us talking about Mateo. Mateo and Facebook held up the picture of my DVD that's got Bedlam as the cover. We got a couple of discussions going. I'm like, I need to record Bedlam. So last night for craps and giggles, I did a dry run. I'm like, let me just try this one time. Let's see how long it takes. Let's see how well I do. And I was actually able to play it and finish it on my first try, and I haven't touched Bedlam in 30-something years. So I was actually able to escape through one of the painted doors that Picasso painted on the wall. That was the way out this time. I remember several different ways. I remember at least 2. I remember that one, and I remember another one where if you poison the dog, that was another way. But I didn't find the dog or anything else. So it's like the memories are not all quite there. But even though it's kind of a small scale adventure that you're in, there's, you know, probably maybe 24 rooms at best. It's a small scale, but there is an interesting dynamic to it because it's never quite the same game. Now, what I haven't done now is put all that footage together and see how long it is, because I have a feeling it's going to be a long video, and I want to, you know, this is my biggest challenge, is how is this going to play out on YouTube? Is this going to be interesting to watch? And I guess the verdict will come in later. But, you know, CoCo TALK, people watch this crap, so maybe somebody will watch that crap too. So, so I did Bedlam. I'll release that in a day or two. And then this, right before the call today, I played Bomb Threat. I got one of the latest disk images from Rick on Bomb Threat, and I discovered something very interesting because I played the Color Computer 3 version, which is brand new. It is now able to generate the artifact colors via RGB, so the red and blues show up on an RGB monitor. When you play it in composite on the Color Computer 3 version, the screen shakes when the bombs go off, and I don't know that Rick knew that it did that because I don't think he's been playing it on real hardware. So that was kind of a neat effect, and I've recorded that video. It's actually uploaded, but it's not public yet. So I thought maybe we can show that off too sometime today during the talk. So I've actually had a fairly productive CoCo week this week. It was probably the first time in a while that I've gotten this much CoCo work done in 1 week's time. So, so that's been my week, man. So. Anybody else doing anything interesting this week in the world of retro?
Nope, been slacking.
Been slacking? Now, somebody did, Richard Cavell, of course, you don't need to ask. You're in the call. Just listen. Nobody here has any manners, so you're British, so we'll forgive you.
Hi, I normally have the microphone on mute, so that I don't disrupt anything, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that I've been experimenting with assembly code, and I decided to do a little project just to test my assembly language abilities, and it's up on GitHub at the moment. And I wanted to invite anyone who wants to take a look at it to just go ahead and download it and see what they think of it. And I'm looking for criticism, feedback, that kind of thing, because I'm still learning.
Okay. Well, if you want, I don't think you can post a link in the YouTube chat just yet, so just post anything you want in the YouTube chat, and I'll make you a moderator, and then you'll be able to post a link straight to YouTube, and that way anybody watching will have the link to try it out.
Okay.
And by the way, anybody who's in the chat right now, if you guys would like to join us in Skype, you're welcome to join us in Skype. You just need to add me as a contact first. Just add OG Stevie Stroh as a Skype contact, and we'd love to bring you into the call. It'd be nice to not have to listen to Curtis and David Ladd all the time. So, although for today's call, we're actually going to need to listen to Curtis. So, okay.
I'm still waiting for my mute Steve button, but anyway.
We don't have the power yet.
So how do I click on Richard Cavell and make him a moderator? Hold on. I think you add moderator. Okay. It looks like the link worked, but I don't know if you put HTTP in front of it. So you might want to do it again. But
no,
yeah.
That's the point, is I removed the HTTP so that it would post okay.
Okay. So we got you. We got you in there, and if you want to post it again now with HTTP, it'll actually work.
Most web browsers are enough. If you just paste it in the URL line, it'll take you there.
That's true. That's true. All right. So do we want to go ahead and start looking at OS-9 here?
Go for it.
Do we want to jump in? All right. Uh-oh, here comes Nick Marentis.
Uh-oh. We're doomed.
You timed that on purpose.
Nick Marentis.
Hello, Nick.
Okay, Nick, so exactly how do you make a boot file?
Okay, in the right-hand corner we have Nick, the OS-9. Let the fight commence.
Okay. So, Nick, this would not be an OS-9 episode without Nick Marentis here, the greatest OS-9 advocate. So,
the professional OS-9 troll.
So, I am on a real CoCo 3. This is not an emulator. And so what I'm going to do right now is what I've done to start with, just as a form of comparison, is I have level 1 and level 2 that I downloaded from the Color Computer Archive. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to be able to show it off other than just showing you what it looks like. But let's go ahead and open up oh, shoot. What an idiot. I don't know what the hell I just did here. So hold on just a second.
Must be running an RSDOS program.
All right, so it's Shift M to mount the disk and press Enter to boot. Here we go. So we are booting up. This is the original OS-9 level 1. Now I downloaded this from the Color Computer Archive, and so this is level 1 version 2.01, and it's looking like here this has actually been patched by Phoenix release from 2002. So this is obviously not the stock version, but it is a version, and of course it's asking me for the date and time, which now this is what I found funny. When I went to look between level 1 and level 2, level 1 actually it let me input a 4-digit date. Level 2 only let me put in a 2-digit date, so it's unfortunately level 2 is not Y2K compliant.
The original level 1, like this is a patch one in 2002, so obviously they fixed the date in this one, but the original level 1 didn't have it.
Okay, this is post Y2K.
Yeah, and so just like NitrOS-9 and OS-9 have had patches to get the Y2K to work as well.
Right. So back in the 80s when you booted up
1983
OS-9,
is when this came out.
Okay, 1983. When you booted up OS-9 level 1 off of a floppy, it looked like this. And this was actually required 64K, correct?
Yes.
And at some point in time, Tandy said, if we're going to release any new games on floppy, they need to support OS-9. Tandy was really behind OS-9.
That was more in level 2 days, because level 1 days it was a mix. You had a few games that were level 2.
Okay.
But a lot of the stuff like Flight Sim 2 was not, and a few others. Sands of Egypt. I mean, it does use the DOS command, but it never booted OS-9.
Gotcha. So right now this is a floppy. There's not a lot on here. So when I type in dir, now I can see that there's a CMDS folder. And even though I've never used OS-9, I understand operating systems and command prompts. So the CMDS is kind of like the /DOS directory of a DOS floppy or a DOS hard drive, right? There's an environmental path. So if I typed in dir space CMDS, I should be able to see all the various commands. And so everything is a command. Unlike in DOS with command.com, dir was an internal command. In this case here, dir is an actual external command from the command interpreter, right? So
there's a couple very small commands built into the shell, like the command.com type thing, but not much.
So there's a bunch of commands here in this CMDS folder, and like one of the commands I remember, because I did get a crash course from Bill Noble a couple days ago, like the startup file is kind of like autoexec bat, right?
Yeah.
And so if I typed in list space startup, this would actually show me the contents of that file. And actually the only thing it did right now is prompt for the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the initial startup file here, whatever. Now, there's only one terminal open right now, so I could not switch to the clear key and switch to another terminal and multitask.
There was no windowing in level 1.
Okay, so level 1, was it still multitasking or was it not multitasking?
Yep. No, it's multitasking. You could run process in the background using the ampersand.
Okay.
Which wasn't all that useful with a single screen. It was better if you had, like, one thing level 1 did support was terminals on the RS-232 pack. So you could do a shell out to /T2, which would be RS-232 pack, and then like use an 80 column VT100 terminal or something, and actually run that simultaneously with the screen you're looking at now.
Okay, and so this is where what I'm trying to wrap my brain around is when you talk about OS-9 being, I understand multitasking, but the minute you start to say multi-user, how the hell do you get a second person to work on the same computer? And I think you just answered that. It has to be through serial. And that is literally the way a lot of mainframe stuff worked, and that's how Unix worked back in the day. Before we started doing everything over IP, is you had like the old WISE terminals, the dumb terminal that was just a keyboard and mouse, and it was an I/O device, right?
Yeah.
And that would be adapted to a CoCo serial port.
Yeah, or you could do it through the modem, like we used to log in. Like when we ran our
modem.
super work system with 8 terminal ports on it, and we had 8 terminals and computers set up at work that you could log into, but we also had an external line that we could phone in from home if we had to fix something without having to come down to the plant.
Now, if I wanted to really geek out, which I won't have time today, since and I'm not bragging, but I have more than one color computer, just saying.
Could you log into what?
Could I log into one of my CoCos from another CoCo via like a null modem cable?
Yeah.
That is an exercise in insanity, but I'm going to try it one day just for craps and giggles.
It does work.
I'm going to take this CoCo and log into that CoCo, and I'm going to use my CoCo as a terminal. That's kind of cool. All right, so that was OS-9 level 1. It's pretty good, right? Everybody like it?
I will mention a couple quick things about OS-9 level 1.
Oh, crap.
Version 1, just because I want Nick to fall asleep. Version 1 and 101 were basically just bug fixes to each other. They came out in 1983. Actually, they were announced simultaneously with the 64K CoCo when it came out in September of 83. Version 2 had a couple of extra features that came out a couple years later. They fixed a few things, like the disk descriptors used to be hard-coded so that if you stuck an 80-track drive on it, you couldn't easily use it properly. Version 2 of OS-9 Level 1 fixed that so it works where you could set up your drives however you want. And a hidden feature, which I don't know too many people know about, but in version 2, is that you also supports the T1 VDG chip. So there's a little setting you could do that you could actually turn the lowercase on. And you could run the whole OS in true lowercase.
Neato. And I know level 2 did that automatically.
Yeah.
Okay. What else can I look at right now while I'm on this floppy before I move over to level 2 that's worth showing off?
Basic 09 will run on a 32 column screen if you want to take a.
Do I just type in basic 09?
Yeah, I don't know if it's on this disk or if it's on the second disk though. I can't remember how that's set up.
Okay, so I will press the button on my thing to I gotta find a pen. Okay.
Don't worry about it. We'll show it in level 2.
We'll show it off. Or we can show it off in NitrOS 9. And I should point out too, for anyone who's not quite aware of who Curtis Boyle is, but Curtis Boyle is one of the people responsible for creating the original NitrOS 9 project, right, Curtis? It was you and Bill Noble, and who else was involved in that?
Scale.
Who's that?
Wes Gale.
Wes Gale. So that was the three of you?
He was the head of Gale Force Enterprises. He did the installer. He did the manuals.
Okay.
And
Now, did you guys...
If Wes ever hears or sees this, I would love him to give me or Bill a call. I have to apologize to him for something that happened years ago. And I'd also like to thank him for all the work he did put into it.
Was heavy drinking involved in this apology?
No, it was just a bad set of circumstances, some timing stuff. I didn't handle it as well as I could have. That way.
Well, that would be cool. Definitely be cool. So you and Bill and Wes were involved in creating the first incarnation of NitrOS-9, which we will get to. But the main thing about the original NitrOS-9 was you took the OS-9 level 2 and decompiled it, disassembled it, and rewrote it to run natively on a 6309 for performance tweaks. And then from there, you added better features to some of the utilities or added utilities, etc. So your version of NitrOS-9 was truly an enhancement over the original.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So this was OS-9 level 1. Goodbye, OS-9 level 1. We miss you already. So I'm going to reboot my CoCo. And by the way, this is all made possible through the CoCo SDC and CoCo SDC Explorer. So now we'll go to level 2. RS-DOS program, Nick says. All right, so we are now booting up OS-9 level 2. OS-9 level 2 version 2.00.01, copyright 1986 by Microware. Now you notice right away that even though it's in 32 columns, it has defaulted to lowercase because level 2 was developed for the CoCo 3, correct?
Yes, and it only runs on the CoCo 3.
Only runs on the CoCo 3.
Well,
so
it runs on a bunch of other level 2 systems from Gimmicks and Smoke Signal Chieftain and a bunch of other companies, but as far as Radio Shack went, CoCo 3 only.
CoCo 3 only. Okay. And the first thing I noticed right away, in addition to the lowercase, is the beautiful pink cursor right here. So
that's because it's defaulting right now to composite mode. That was the other thing. It defaulted composite because most people bought the CoCo 3 didn't get the CM8 right off the bat.
Okay. So what is that? What's the command?
Mon-type space R.
Mon-type space R for RGB.
Yeah.
There we go.
Now it's a nice blue. See how improved that is?
That is much better. So now I could edit my startup. All right. And I could change that. I could put that file in there. Ooh, is there no file here?
No, you're using a line editor. Edit's not the greatest editor.
Okay, well, how do I get out of here? Control Q?
Just Q, I think.
All right, so how do I edit my startup?
Let's list it first and see what's in there. Because I can't remember what stock has, to be honest.
Okay, so there's a set time and there's a date. Welcome message. Welcome to OS-9.
Yeah.
So you got to add Mon-type R.
Add? I have to add it, but yeah, how do I get into that? Hey, and there's Simon. Hey, Simon, how are you? All right, well, screw it. We're not going to mess with that.
Yeah,
what can I?
We're not going to be using regular OS-9 level 2.
What can I do right now to show off OS-9 level 2?
You can do shell space I equals /W1 ampersand.
Okay, so right away, this is one of the things I'm noticing when I type dir. I see that the directories are in uppercase. And one of the things that Bill had mentioned to me is it's kind of the unwritten rule that when you make a directory, that should be in all caps and that your file should be in...
It's not enforced, but it just makes it easier to figure out.
It makes it easier to spot. So when I list a directory right now, I can see that CMDS commands is a directory and sys is a directory, right? So, okay, what was the thing?
Did Bill tell you about the E option under?
No.
If you do dir space E, the extended directory. So like your creation date and time and sector number and a bunch of other crap, which if you're into the technical
hurting
side
my eyes right now. Yeah, this is
more meant for 80 column or 40 column screen. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is completely not eyeball friendly right now. Much like Curtis and David Ladd, I should say.
I'll take care of you later, Steve. I'll take care of you later.
All right. So what was the thing you said I could do to make the screen different?
Just do a shell space I equals /W1 ampersand.
And everybody take notes of this. Shell equals I equals W1 / ampersand.
No, it's /W1 ampersand.
I equals W1
/W1 before the W1.
Start over. I equals
/
W1
ampersand.
ampersand. Very important where your slashes and ampersands go. All right. Now I'm going to hit enter.
Okay, so that just returned back that you just created a new process which is process number 3.
Okay.
And now you can hit clear.
Ah, now I'm in another window. Ooh, and this one's graphical.
Actually, no, it's text, but you could do multiple text windows on the same physical screen, which is what this kind of
because this is
here.
40 column text then.
It's 40 column, but it's only using part of it. So you could add another window, say, below it, and have 2 separate programs running on 2 halves of the same screen. Even in
How do
text
I do
mode.
that?
I'm trying to remember what the defaults like. We're all using all the defaults from level 2 back from 1986. You try shell I equals /W2 ampersand and see if that creates a second one on the screen. I honestly can't remember.
Now, does it remember the commands I've typed in before?
No,
It'll-
not on this one.
Not on a new window because you've created a new keyboard buffer in a new window.
Shell equals
I equals shell space
shell space
I equals
I equals slash
/2.
W2 ampersand.
Yep.
Ooh.
Now you can clear to that one. You can tell which one's active by where the cursor is.
Okay.
How do you
So
switch?
here's look at that.
How do you switch windows?
Clear.
Clear.
The clear key.
Clear to go forward or shift clear to go backwards through your windows.
Okay, so it cycles through. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I now have 3 terminal windows open.
Yeah.
Now do the shell I equals /W3.
Christ, we're getting into Inception at this point here, aren't we?
Hit
Okay.
Control A.
Shell I equals /W3 ampersand. Oh my God.
I'm glad Dave remembers what all the default windows were because I couldn't.
Okay, David Ladd is the man. Very, very cool. So we can see
stuff.
you can see here already we are starting to see that I can multitask the dir command in multiple windows. And eat your heart out, RS-DOS. RS-DOS can only dir once at a time here. I can multi-dir here. I can dir to my heart's content.
Hey, you can
I
do a
actually,
different directory in each one if you wanted to.
yeah, I could, yeah. So here I could do CD, CMDS, and I could dir the hell out of that one. Why is that not working?
Oh, yeah. The stock level 2 used CHD.
CHD for change directory?
Yeah. We had so many requests from people used to DOS using just CD that it's basically built into NitrOS-9 now.
Okay. So yeah, I have different directories open. So this is a stock install of NitrOS-9 Level 2, which was also released, created by Microware, released via Tandy, and this required a Color Computer 3. And so now we're looking at NitrOS-9 Level 2 off of a floppy. And having a highly capable operating system off of floppies, I would imagine, was very limiting, right? Having to do the
It wasn't
floppy
too bad
shuffle.
if you had at least a 40-track double-sided or an 80-track double-sided drive, which it built in supported. But that wasn't what most people had at the time. So yes, it was quite limiting.
Jerry Adams is asking, where can I get a CoCo SDC? Well, you can get them from Ed Snyder. I have a link to Ed Snyder's Zipster Zone on my homepage, which is ogsteviestro.com. And so you can get to it there. If you're on the Facebook group, you can reach out to him there. If you're on the CoCo mailing list, you could reach out to Ed Snyder, a.k.a. the Zipster, as well. Grant Leedy is calling back. Should we let him in? Let's put it to a vote. We letting Grant back in?
Yeah, why not?
All in favor? All right. So you have the power. All right. So Grant. Oh, Barry Nelson is calling. Okay. Barry Nelson is here from the Wild West. Okay. So now we've just kind of peeked at the stock OS-9 Level 2. Are we ready to jump into the deep waters of multi-user multitasking and take a look at NitrOS-9? Are we ready, people?
Now this
All right.
one, if I remember correctly, Bill made you a hard drive image for
Yes, he did.
NitrOS-9? Okay.
Yes. Okay. So far we looked at level 1 off of a floppy. We just finished looking at level 2 off of a floppy. We are now going to look at NitrOS-9 on a virtual hard disk. And I love that the CoCo SDC is NitrOS-9 aware. Okay,
Yeah, that's what I use as well.
and so I'm now booting up to a virtual hard drive that that was given to me by Bill Noble, Curtis's partner in crime, 1/3 of the original NitrOS-9 team. Curtis, Bill, and Wes for the original NitrOS-9 team. And what I'm looking at right now is the initial login screen, and this has defaulted to 80 columns. And not only is it defaulted to 80 columns, but I've also modified the startup file on this one to default to RGB. So the mon type is RGB here. And also here we've done the shell equals shell I equals W2, W3, and W4. So this is automatically launching 3 more windows. So when I boot into this thing, I've got 4 terminal sessions open. So I'll be able to switch around between terminals and show off some of the multitasking ability of this one. So this is the first terminal, and this one says term. So that's like the primary console, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I hit clear and I've gone over to my second screen, now this says W2 for my second window. And from here, I can actually launch like G shell. And this is the graphic shell. This is not multi-view, correct? Multi-view is a different application.
Nope, this is multi-view.
This is multi-view?
Multi-view is a package. It's got the G shell thing, but it's also got the utilities like the clock, the calendar, control panel, that kind of thing.
Okay, kind of desk-matey.
Yeah.
Now,
I see we should have set the colors better than the default. But
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. I'm also trying to get my joystick back. Barry Nelson's calling back in, or is he on the call? Okay, which joystick do I need to plug in here for this thing to work like a mouse right now?
It depends on how it's configured. You can have it set for either one. You can change it too. So I don't know what you have it defaulting to.
Okay, I keep getting a pop-up that Barry Nelson's trying to call, but it goes away before I can click on it. Okay, so right now, okay, so Control Q, Control Clear, right?
Yeah, for keyboard, mouse, on, off.
Okay, so how do I'm trying to get my mouse going. I don't remember which joystick port it needs to go in. There it goes. Here's my mouse. Okay, so Bill Noble has, if I click on the Tandy logo here, he has under Control Panel it defaulting to his preferred color scheme, which is kind of like a baby blue. And then from here, you can kind of see this pseudo 3D look to it. Here's my mouse pointer. We have the scroll windows on the side. There's a little bit of a 3D look to these scroll guys here. This isn't an 80. Okay, Barry Nelson. Is Barry, are you in the call or are you not in the call? Because you keep showing up on my screen. I don't know. Okay, so here we go. This is graphic shell, and this is how I could browse the hard drive graphically. So what /DD is the hard drive?
Yeah.
And if I double click that, I am now going to see at a blistering
technically,
speed.
DD stands for default drive. You can have it as a RAM drive, a floppy drive,
I see.
a hard drive.
Now,
whatever.
What I am not sure about on this one, and Bill's not with us because he's working right now. When I say he's not with us, he hasn't left the earth or anything, gone to the afterlife. He's just at his job. But the disk image that Bill sent me has a module baked into it to talk to DriveWire to get a real-time clock. And I don't know if I've gotten the fixed one that has got DriveWire removed. And since I don't have DriveWire connected via a serial cable, this might actually be running slower than it would on a normal system. But yeah, so this is basically the graphical way to view things. Now, Curtis, if will your play command work from the GUI?
If you have an AIF file set up to do it, it will. If not, you'd have to set that up first.
Okay, so I want to try to do your play command from the GUI, and if not, we'll do it from the command prompt. But I need to also share system sound with you guys so you can hear it, because that was actually pretty impressive to hear this. So under ASM, under sound, I think it was, or gosh, I wish he was here.
I don't remember where he had it either.
Games.
Was it under games?
Folder?
Oh, I just hear Bill. Is that Bill calling in?
No, it's Barry Nelson. Barry keeps kind of dropping and falling off. Okay, so now under here's Warcraft. And then inside Warcraft, he's got a sound folder. And then inside here, he's got a bunch of WAV files. So hey, Barry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm sorry about I dropped off. I was on the call. I dropped off. Sorry about that.
You dropped back on. Okay. Now, see, this is taking a while to open. Okay, that's actually not that bad. Okay, if I double-click a WAV file, will it play it from here?
I don't know. Like normally you have AI files. If you remember the old way that Windows used to work with, was it PIFs way back in the day, which identifies what extensions run what programs.
Right.
If he hasn't got an AIF set up for play yet, and he just installed it, so I'm guessing he probably didn't. It probably won't.
Okay.
But you can kind of cheat a little bit here. Hit the S key.
S on the keyboard?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think you fixed the drive wire because that shouldn't be taking that long.
Okay, so is this like basically opening up a shell?
Yeah, but in your current directory, so you don't have to change all the way through it. So
okay.
Now you can just type play and then one of the...
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
Yeah,
okay.
I wasn't the best color set he picked there.
How can I close this window?
Just type EX.
EX for exit? Okay. Yeah. I'm going to open up a third one. CD ASM CD games.
You can path it all together with / too. You don't have to do it. It's all separate.
That's a lot of work.
Less work than typing it every time.
Oh, shut up.
It's Warcraft, not Wordcraft.
Okay, listen. If I need any comments from the peanut gallery, I'll visit the circus, okay?
Well, you are part of the circus already, so watch it.
CD SND.
Does the shell do tab completion, or do you have to manually type everything?
The shell that he's running now, as long as it's the full version of Shell Plus, the up and down arrows will give you command history, and you can use Shift Right and to reprint the last or whatever command you've gone through your command history to do, and then you can go back and forth and overtype.
Okay,
I'm hoping we'll get that fixed because I know it wasn't quite set up properly for that.
And so if I type in play ready.wave, this is your player command, Curtis, right? So we're going to hear OS-9 play a wave file. And I didn't hear it on mine either.
I didn't hear it, no. Is it a really quiet one?
No, it is... let me crank this up to 11. What's a command I can do to get the bell? What is it? Display 07?
Display 7. Yeah.
Display 7? Okay. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I heard.
Yep,
okay. Play ready.wave.
Your command, master.
Okay, somebody's not muted because I'm hearing it twice now. Somebody doesn't have headphones on or something, but that's okay. Okay, did you guys hear that?
Your command.
Yes.
Your command master. That's the orc voice from Warcraft. So that's so this is the updated image that has Curtis's play command. The one we tried demoing earlier in the week, the play command was all jacked up. So apparently when you go to download OS-9 from the repository, there's kind of a mixed bag of some of the utilities, and not all of them are up to date.
That's one thing we'll be working on. We want to make a master, and Nick's talked about this before too, to make a master CoCo SDC compatible hard drive image that has all the latest stuff already pre-installed and ready to go, so people don't have to worry about making boot files and trying to find the latest versions of this and that, and just make one nice solid 512K required ready to go system.
Right. And so there's a play command. If I was to, can I do a CD? If I want to get to the root of the games directory, can I do CD /games, and that'll take me straight back?
No, you'd have to either start at the beginning, like /DDASM games, or you can go ...
CD/DD/games.
Yeah, that would work.
Right. On OS-9, you always have, or NitrOS-9, you always have to specify at the start a drive descriptor if you're specifying an absolute path. So, it would be like always having to specify C: if you're on Windows. So if you want to go to the root directory of a drive DD, which is your default drive, you say CD /DD. Unlike Linux, which Linux sort of hides the device names, but OS-9 and NitrOS-9 do not.
So it's kind of a relative path to where it actually is, kind of like a /dev/whatever in Linux.
Right. If you had to type to get to the root directory of your device in Linux, if you had to type /dev/hda/ and then whatever the direct, that's more or less what you're doing in Linux. You're saying /dd, which is the device name, then / and then the directory on that device.
Yeah. You can go back up directories with periods, though. Yeah, 2 periods is back 1 directory, 3 periods is back 2 directories, etc.
All right, so one of the things we're looking at right now, this is Rick Adams' Shanghai, which was ported to OS-9, so we can see that in a window. Obviously, we know that this is a Mahjong game, or as I think it was referred to one time as a Mahjong clone. So,
We should
so this
mention
is
we're
Shanghai.
actually showing the alternate character set that
Yes.
Rick wanted in the original game.
These are this is the character set that Rick had wanted, which is more of the Ivory character set. And then I guess later in development is when Activision decided, no, we don't want those colors, and change it. And at the time it was an Easter egg. You had to find the hidden pixel to click on to unlock this. But in the OS-9 port, it is now a menu option. And I believe you had mentioned too that maybe Alan Huffman had come up with a new tile set that looked like playing cards or something
Alan
like that.
DeCock originally did the alternate tile sets, and there's
Oh,
been
Alan,
a few.
okay. Okay.
I have the cartridge for that. Where is the software for OS9 available somewhere?
Is it on the repository? To be honest, I haven't looked. I would imagine it should.
So, but the nice thing about this is my original terminal window. This is the G shell, which is in window 2. This is now a Shanghai in window 3. And here's my 4th window. So now I could actually load up something like Basic 09. And here I go into Basic 09. I am now in Basic 09. So I can cycle through all the screens pretty quickly. This is on a real CoCo. This is
Actually,
not
hold
an
down
emulator.
clear key. Just hold it down.
If you hold it down, oh wow, look at that, psychedelic, huh? Giving me flashbacks, man.
Yeah. Now, if you go to your main, window and just type proc, P-R-O-C.
Hold on, I'm in the middle of writing master code here. Something you wouldn't understand.
You're still in the command line part. You have to do E first. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And then you have to put a
at the
space.
beginning. Yeah,
Oh, space.
at the very beginning. Yeah. I hit shift right arrow. Yeah. Then just hit control right arrow where the missing quote is, and then
Too
shift
late.
right arrow again. That's the built-in command line editor that you get on any input prompt. You can hit
How do I
shift,
delete a key? How do I delete a key?
control
Damn
left
it.
arrow to delete.
Okay. I'm hearing myself twice. Who is not muted right now? Somebody's coming through speakers or something. I'm hearing myself echoing back. Okay, so we got that. We're gonna do 20.
I'm not hearing that, by the way.
Go to 10. Now I can type in run.
Q first to quit the editor,
Quit the editor.
and then run.
Run. Okay, so here we have a running program in Basic 09 that says OS9 rocks. Okay, and so somebody's asking if I press Shift Clear, can I cycle backwards? And that appears to be true. Okay. Does CLS work? Yes, it does. Okay, how did I lose my cursor now? I don't see my cursor.
I would guess that the Basic 09 is stealing the cursor.
Okay. So when you type in proc right now, it is listing all the running processes. And so I see a process ID on the left here. Process ID. Process ID 1 through 9.
The actual process number. Parent is the process that spawned it, so you can kind of track the child. User is which user number. Now you're only running as a single user right now, but if you had multiple users logged in, that would change. Priority. You can actually bump your programs up and down. If you have something that you want running in the background, you don't care if it takes longer, you want more CPU resources to a different program, you can change those willy-nilly as much as you want. Age is more of a technical thing. The task is more of a technical thing. Status, more of a technical thing. Signal, if you're sending signals between processes, that's where it would be flagging what signal you sent or is receiving. Module is the name of the program actually running in that process.
So we can see here Shell, G Shell, Shanghai, and Basic 09.
Yeah, and you see Basic 09 actually has program underneath, because Basic 09 is a language itself, but you can have multiple processes within Basic 09, like multiple procedures. It'll actually list which one is currently being run or currently being edited.
Okay.
And then your I/O paths is your less than is your standard input, greater than is your standard output, greater than is your standard error output. And that actually comes in useful for debugging, because you can actually have like text messages from a program you're writing, either error messages or stuff that you're writing out to the error path, going to a completely different window than the main program, so you can keep track of what you really want to see your program doing, and then all the status stuff coming out in a different window entirely. So you actually don't mess it up with, like if you've ever run the debugger Tron on RS-DOS, you get line numbers and stuff in the middle of all your text your program's actually trying to print. It's hard to read. This way you can actually tell it, put all those messages in a different window and just keep what I actually want the program to normally print on the other ones. You can kind of keep track.
Gotcha. Okay, William Carlin had said something in chat here. He says the I parameter means immortal, as in will not terminate when an end of file is sent through the specified terminal /W1 or window 1. Immortal. There's an immortal command.
If you don't put the I, if you hit Shift Break, which is the escape key under OS-9, it'll just exit the shell immediately.
Okay.
If you don't put the immortal basically says don't let that quit, unless you type EX or something.
Okay. So what is he said? How do I break?
I always thought that meant interactive.
Nope. Immortal.
How do I break out of the OS-9 program right now?
Control C or Control E.
Control C or Control E. Neither one is working.
Okay, that must mean that the window descriptor is a bit botched up right now. That's what I think Bill was supposed to be working on because he'd found some of them were a bit porked.
Okay, so here's what I am going to do. I'm going to kill that process. So I'm going to say kill. Do I have to type in the word proc in front of that or just kill the number? So if I kill 8.
The number, yeah.
Okay, so I've just killed process 8. OS-9 is gone. Okay, yeah, and now my cursor's back, and now the computer's not running slow as dog crap anymore. Okay, so here's my. Now I do think some of the slowdownness is because this is still probably trying to hit
DriveWire,
trying to hit DriveWire for a real-time clock. Okay, so what else can we show off now that we have NitrOS-9? What can I do to help show this off? And anybody who's watching. If you either have questions or information you'd like to share, now is definitely the time because this is like my second time looking at it. I don't hate it. I know there's things I need to better understand, and I know one of the challenges this has is that it is definitely a hodgepodge of utilities and everything else too. It's not a clean managed package right now. It's so I have something that basically Bill has cobbled together for himself, and he got it working for him. He shared it with me, and my environment's different than his environment. So I think that's some of the challenges and maybe some of the stuff the naysayers, Nick, who might want to. there's definitely some mud we could sling here. But we have people here who know this much better than I. So why don't you guys just tell the world more about OS-9 and tell me what I can be doing to help show off what you're talking about right now.
Well, I've also got an image I've put together. It's a general purpose image for NitrOS-9. It has a ton of games, utilities, and all kinds of other stuff that's ready to run. I've got a version of it, I believe, for the SDC. And for DriveWire, I think, and some other stuff. So,
what time does that plane land that you're on right now, Barry?
I wish it would land. Tell me about it. So anyway, can you hear me okay? Or
yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm just messing with you. Yeah. Is that available somewhere? Is there a link for that?
Well, I think the Computer Archive has a link, a copy of it. I believe I've got an image of it on Google Drive.
Yeah, if it's so, what we can do if that link is not already around, we can get to whatever that link is as well, and we'll post it in the description of this video or as a comment to this video later on. I think that would be a great resource. You've got one. I think Curtis and Bill are going to be working on. But if we could have a plug and play hard drive image that people could just boot up and start messing with it. Just to kind of become familiar with it and get over some of the fear and misconceptions. And it's a learning curve. For me, I'm looking at this. I remember DOS commands very vividly because I spent, I don't know how many years working in DOS. So for me, that's like muscle memory. I can type a command path and a command prompt, no problem. Do I know what those commands are in OS-9? No, but could I learn them? Sure. So I think
help.
You can type in help?
Well, yeah, help is a good trick. Also, for those of you that are familiar with DOS, the commands are very, very similar. Under NitrOS-9, for instance, OS-9 actually had CHD, but NitrOS-9 has CD, just like DOS has CD.
For change directory.
Right.
And CX
so
for the
same
commands
command.
directory.
dir is dir. So dir from DOS is dir under OS-9. A lot of the same commands. Copy is copy. A lot of the same commands work. The differences are as follows. The slashes are the reverse direction. So DOS uses the slash that's under the pipe or the vertical bar, and OS-9 and Linux both use the slash that's under the question mark.
Right, it's the / versus the backslash, and
I
there
think
is
it's only DOS that uses backslash. I mean, OS
Right.
10's BSD Unix also uses / I don't know why DOS.
yeah,
did
and
that.
there and lucky for us, there is no backslash on the CoCo keyboard. So
Yeah. So that's the other slash is used. The commands are mostly the same. The other difference is the paths. On DOS, you have a drive letter, and under OS-9, you have a device name. So slash in the device name instead of drive letter C : or whatever is the same thing.
okay,
So that's but a lot of it is very, very similar. Who's giggling in the background over there?
All
a
of us
couple
are because we just watched Steve.
I'm trying to figure out how to get out of help here, and I can't figure it out.
Shift escape if the window's set properly.
Okay.
I'm not getting my video's jumping around because I'm on a phone, so I'm not seeing what the rest of you guys are giggling at with Steve struggling to get out of the help command.
Yes. Okay. Very cool.
Did
So,
Bill
yeah,
give you
there's-
the melt command?
The who command?
Melt?
Melt? No. What is melt?
Just try it if it's there. If it's not there, I won't tell you about it because it's a nice one.
Anyway,
Oh. The screen has melted. Total wipeout.
So yeah, I'll let break or shift break is a lot of times your abort or exit key. Those are two keys to keep in mind when you want to exit something. Sort of like break or Control Z under DOS.
Okay.
Or Control D or Control C under Linux. Okay. But there's a lot of parallels. If you're in doubt about something and you're curious, you can run that help command, and hopefully you don't get yourself stuck in there. So that'll tell you a lot of the commands and give you a lot of information. You can also try a DOS command or a Linux command, because a lot of Linux commands have been ported, and a lot of the DOS commands are already there.
Right. Now, what about development tools? Are the development tools part of the stock install? Like I noticed when I typed in basic 09, I just got to it. Is that standard? Or is there a standard assembler that comes with this as well?
Basic 09 is standard.
On the floppy disk, all of the stuff came on separate disks. Okay, because
Okay.
there just wasn't enough room. But on most of the hard drive images that have been put together out there for today that are pre-assembled, like mine and whatnot, you have the Tandy Radio Shack ASM command is already on there. A lot of them have the CC installed. The C compiler is pre-installed.
RMA, which is the macro assembler.
Yeah.
So
mine and Bill's both have that on there.
there is a way to set up environmental paths, right? So like there are certain things in the CMDS folder that are already there, right? Now, can you add? Is there the equivalent of a batch file where you can create a little script command that you can just call by name that might run a series of commands for us?
Yeah, startup is an
Yeah.
example.
Now, as far as environmental paths, though, on the stock standard shell, those don't exist. You only have two paths.
On
Your
Shell Plus,
current
you do.
Your current working directory and your current execution directory. Okay. Which is why when you go into CMDS, which is by the default current execution directory, you see all that stuff piled into one directory, because that's your standard execution directory, and you only have one of them. So everything pretty much that you want to have access to without doing something special, it has to go in there.
Okay. Yeah, and that is a Linux command. When you type in pwd to print working directory, it'll show you what that is. And my
That'll
working
show you your current working directory. And I
Right.
think it's PXD.
Yeah, PXD
Yeah.
gives you your execution directory.
Roger that.
Yep.
Hey, we have a question in the chat from Norlander. He says, I have Alan DeCock's Nitro Level 3, but haven't installed it. What are the differences between the levels?
Level 3, from what I understand from Bill, because I haven't tried fiddling with it, it doesn't work now with the newest versions of NitrOS-9 because of the way they split the modules up. They kind of redid the internals. Level 3 was a way to extend system memory beyond 64K. Basically, it took RBF, which is like random block file devices like hard drives and RAM drives and floppy drives, and gave it its own 16K chunk in the memory map. And then SCF devices, which are like terminals and Windows and VDG screens, was giving a separate 16K and would swap between those two because you never access both exactly simultaneously because your multitasking is task switching very rapidly. So it basically extended your system memory map from 64K to 80K.
At least that's the
level
theory.
3. Oh, no, it worked. I used to run it. But it doesn't work with, sound driven, joy driven, all the stuff's been split up. Like all the stuff doesn't work because nobody patched level 3 to match all the changes that were done later. So you'd have to run a pretty old version of NitrOS-9 to get that to work. Though I think Bill is working on trying to get that working again.
Yeah, Bill's an impressive guy. The things he continues to crank out, he's just always working on this stuff, and he needs like continuously adding new things to the Roger Taylor package. It's just like, I don't know where he finds the time, but that guy's always cranking stuff out. This is like the second or third hard drive image he's cranked out for me. So, much appreciation to Bill Noble for sure. So here's a dumb question because my history is a little foggy and I wasn't involved back around PenFest of 2000. The famous song from Brother Jeremy where he's saying, Kevin Darling, will you please let the code free or whatever it was,
Yep.
right? So what version was he talking about there?
That was the unreleased, sanctioned by Tandy and Microware. Kevin Darling headed with 20 or 30 other people working on it, plus a bunch of the vendors at the time, to release OS-9 Level 2 version 3, which added overlapping windows and a ton of new features and optimized and debugged a bunch of stuff. And everybody was rewriting their drivers, like Burke and Burke and Frank Hogg and a bunch of others were rewriting their drivers all to run in compliance with that new version that was going to be actually sold by Tandy. And then Tandy, the Color Computer division, didn't know it at the time, but Tandy was planning on canceling the Color Computer. And as soon as that happened, it was like, it's done. We're not going to be distributing it. They did have a bit of a caveat. They did say to Kevin, if you guys make all the manuals and package it all up and get it professionally packaged and ready to go, we might consider selling it through express order. And Kevin went, we never got paid for any of this stuff yet because they hadn't completed it technically, and they didn't have the money or the funds to do all that, so it just dropped.
Okay.
And then Brother Jeremy finally got Kevin to release a mostly complete version of what was done at the time.
Has any of that code made its way into NitrOS-9 or any of the current versions? Or
The actual code, no, because by the time we even saw some of the level 2 version 3 stuff, we were so far into NitrOS-9 it would have been in like a big step backwards to try to redo it all over again. And we'd gone off in different directions. We were optimizing more for speed. They were optimizing more for features. But some of the stuff that was in there, like some of the new display commands for doing like filled circles, filled ellipses, and a few things, that has come across. But it was independently programmed, not ported from the original.
Okay.
In fact, I think I sent you a little text file that has a history of it that Kevin wrote at one time, explaining the whole sorted story. And it's actually not that long. It's actually a pretty interesting read.
Where did you put it?
Did I put it in the Google Drive or did I send it by email? I don't even remember.
I don't know. I'll look in the Google Drive real quick.
Oh, I forgot to mention another version of a pre-done hard drive that I have is for VCC or MAME, and is a hard drive that you can attach to MAME or VCC, and it will boot up and emulate a Tandy Color Computer 3 with a hard drive attached.
Okay.
Steve, do you want me to put it in Skype or just email it to you?
Yeah, if you want, put it in Skype. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be handy too.
I can't do that right now because I'm on a phone. So
yeah, that's fine.
I'll send the link later.
Yeah, whatever links you guys send later on, I'll compile them and put them in the description of this video so people can come back later and get them. I'll add it to my website too. So in the future, when you go to ogsteviestro.com under my CoCo links page, I'll have an OS-9 section for OS-9 resources. What was I going to say? I don't remember. Oh, but no, what you just mentioned, Barry, the fact that we've got some hard drives optimized for emulators is, I think that's going to be really good to help some people who maybe don't even have a color computer. So to me, and again, how people look at things and what everybody's priority is and your philosophies and views, there's not really right or wrong. But in my simple mind, the only way OS-9 is really going to have any meaning to me is when I run it on real hardware. Because when I'm sitting here and looking at this yellowed old 35-year-old computer and I'm looking at this old machine and I can actually see that this machine can multitask and I can switch back to these different screens here. Like, for example, here's Shanghai. Shanghai's been waiting for us this whole time. I can appreciate it better on real hardware because I'm seeing it and I know what I'm working on. The minute you run this in MAME or VCC, it's, unless you were around at that time, it's really hard to appreciate what it's doing, because now you're just looking at it, well, yeah, this is like a crappy version of Windows. I can do this in Windows so much better. But when you're doing it on a real CoCo, to me, it's even more impressive because, I mean, this was multitasking at a time when the IBM PC could not multitask.
Yeah, this is Windows 1.04 days when this was released.
You know, so this is pretty impressive.
I quite agree with you. At the time, I was running a bulletin board on a Tandy color computer, and I had friends of mine that were running bulletin boards on their IBMs. And there was one day one of them came over to visit me, okay? And I'm sitting there playing, I forget what, I think I was playing Rogue on my color computer, okay? And they see the game up on the screen. I'm running Rogue, right? I had 512K of RAM, so it would run, and the bulletin board didn't take up that much memory. So I'm playing Rogue, and they asked me, well, what computer are you running the bulletin board on? Oh, this one. And I switched the screen. And there's a bulletin board running, and their jaw about hit the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah, like I've watched Curtis show me some stuff where Curtis was like basically working on something, and then he would switch
You can
screens
say what it is if you want.
No, I'm not going to say that, but I'm just saying, you have shown me that you could be pretty proficient with your CoCo, and of course, this is Curtis's version of This Is Not Too Long. It's like 2 pages of like lots of words.
That's not my version. That's actually straight from Kevin. Okay,
that's a lot of reading right now. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I will switch over here to show off that screen right now. So can I make this any bigger? I don't know. So OS-9 Level 2 Upgrade Story by Kevin Darling. Background, April through September 1988. Prehistory, private work. Kevin Myers and myself got wind that an update was coming, and we began passing along any bugs we found to the CoCo guys at Tandy, partly because Microware was getting out of the 6809 by then. Then one got the job. At the end, I got the job. Okay.
There's a few glitches when it got transferred.
At the end of September, Microware flew me up to Des Moines to get info needed for 2 projects at the same time: the Level 2 update and a port of something to the Atari ST. Both were supposed to be done by the end of that year. The plan was to first do all of the known little bugs and also add any enhancements possible within a few weeks, and that was all at first. In October, the ST project got canceled. Otherwise, the Level 2 update would have been sent out way back then, and yet you'd have spent 20 to 30 for nothing in comparison to what you've gotten free since off the net since then. Actually, we'd be worse off than that, as most serious work would have stopped, and there would have been no fast graphics drivers, new GFX2 clock patches, ACIA speedups, or a dozen other neat giveaways which came along much later on. So the new original schedule, October to December 88, new time frame for official upgrade. Now we suddenly had some more time for the Level 2 work, though not much more, and both Microware and Tandy gave carte blanche to add whatever we wanted. Applause, knowing that this update would also be the new stock Level 2 release. I wanted a lot in there, grin, but needed some help doing so. From that arose a special private section on the CompuServe OS-9 forum donated by Wayne Day, wherein, and Wayne is the guy you worked with too on NitrOS-9?
No,
that was Wes.
He was
Wes.
he was separate.
Okay. We're in about 24 volunteers wrote, donated, and tested tons of new code. Names later remind me. Again, with Microware and Tandy's blessings, this included rival third parties who worked together for the common good, modifying their own drivers to come into upgrade compliance. To say that all this was unique in the history of operating systems would be an obvious understatement. Now, although no one at Tandy and Microware ever said, let's stop here, and I did so a few weeks too late, there were times that a version could have been released. Now, end of the first work was in January 1989. Original cleanup work done. Okay, we could have stopped in January 1989, but that still would not have left tons of possible stuff untouched. By this time, we were also writing demo programs that went beyond what anyone else had tried and discovered, as others have recently, that WinDNet had major problems with multiple overlays and menus. I should have collected the money and run right then, but sigh, I wouldn't have been able to face myself later had I done so. Dumb? Maybe. But remember, this was going to be the new stock level 2. April, May 1989. The graphic driver crunch and speed ups applied, clear problem solved. So as we continued, I rewrote much of WinDNet. In the meantime, Kent was carving out huge chunks of room for me in graphic drivers, Graph Drive, and that let me create those Graph Drive speedups you have now. We also were able to find out a lot of new and really obscure and rare bugs and fix them. Best of all, I also worked out a simple and effective fix for the IRQ stoppage when changing multi-view screens. And you already have that too, included in Bruce Isted's IBM mouse patch. Thus, the end of May 1989 was the next best stopping point, and in fact, that's pretty much the version I myself still run today. The volunteer work was still ongoing, though, and something else happened. Remember, the Rainbow Fest when SurComp's Window Master, you don't have to be an OS-9 rocket scientist to have overlapping Windows RS-DOS program came out? No, I don't, but that's okay. Kinda miffed me. I gritted my teeth. You want to see easy to use overlapping windows? So going too far. In June to August of 1989, overlapping movable resizable windows, new GFX2. From June to the end of August, Super Windows was written. After enormous work, a 3D look, movable resizable non-stopping overlapping windows were crammed into the original 8K graphics driver space. Still proud of that. You could even pick up windows and move them to other screens. Too neat. Wow, that is kind of cool. Too neat and useless. Great for demos and fun to play with. Dale Puckett loved them, but they took up slightly too much RAM, slowed down the covered windows, and compared to the full screen apps we were used to, just useless. Overlapping windows make a heck of a lot more sense on a larger display, yeah. Also, they were impossible on a 128K system, which is part of the specs. So I think they will remain a curiosity piece forever, or probably go into OSK. What is OSK?
That's the 68,000 version of OS-9.
Anyway, I decided to yank those and put back the other more needed stuff. But y'all got much more of the new GFX2 from that part of the project too. Sudden death. Are we on the... Holy crap, dude. I can't keep reading this. I'm going
You don't have
crazy.
to leave that last part too much. People and what we proved, you can just finish a little bit of the history. Because that's basically just thanking people.
Okay, so he's thanking a lot of people.
In 1989, the writing was already on the wall for Tandy as far as they wanted to pull out of the computer industry.
So yeah, thanking a lot of people. I must note the unbelievable secrecy, which was held over a year until Tandy said it was okay to talk by everyone. Yeah, you have a lot of people collaborating. You have a lot of people keeping this quiet. That is pretty impressive, I have to say. Now, so most of the stuff he's talking about, though, it's not in NitrOS-9, and it kind of never really got released.
Bits and pieces of it are like the fast griff patches he released separately for regular OS-9. We did put those in NitrOS-9 and then improve them. The GFX2 stuff we incorporated. The being able to read PC-DOS disks we incorporated. Some of the extra graphics commands he added, we incorporated those too. So there's bits of 3D look in G Shell that got incorporated, though we did it differently because we didn't know about their version at the time. So we did some of it independently without even knowing that was in the upgrade. And then there was some stuff that we found in the upgrade afterwards that wasn't too hard for us to re-implement ourselves with all the code we have now. So
Okay.
we did do some of it, but like the Super Windows part, no, we never got to that point.
Okay. Now, he said that back then it was pointless. Is there any more point to that now since we have 6309s and 512K?
I think in some ways, yes. I mean, they did slow down quite a bit. Oh, crap.
Does that work?
I don't know. I just hung up.
Okay.
The one thing that that's still true today that I think made the overlapping windows not quite as useful as they would be in other platforms is that the resolution on the CoCo is just too low to have too many windows over top of each other to get any useful work done. Because you're usually limited to 320 by 200 or 640 by 200 resolution. And if you're running a text editor, you generally want a fair bit of room for text. You want a little tiny window like you showed when you did the OS-9 Level 2 demo earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his main beef, is that it was cool. It was nice that it worked, but it wasn't that useful once you got into the practice of trying to run real apps.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't really useful.
Yeah, practicality
and
wasn't
it's probably still not real useful.
Yeah, it'd be faster. Slow down with overlapping windows. We could solve some with the 639, and that would be nice. But the layout isn't that good.
Okay, well, there's been a lot of chatter in the chat room that I haven't been able to keep my eye on. So let me just back scroll here and see if there's anything here we need to mention here. So here's Richard is putting out his GitHub on his assembly project. Jerry Adams, can you use a Haze stack chronograph to instantly input the time and date? I use OS-9 Level 1 on my CoCo 2. I believe you had to have a hard disk drive, right? I'm looking forward to seeing NitrOS-9 for the first time. Okay, so that's a little bit older, right? So where can I get a CoCo SDC? We answered that question. The flight practitioner says Minted is a great OS-9 text editor, which I believe is now included with the NitrOS-9 distros. Are you guys familiar with that one? Minted, capital M-I-N-T.
I have heard of it. I don't use it, but if it's on the distro and it's actually a screen text editor, other than like the edit you tried running earlier, that might be a nice one if it's built in. I use VED because Bob Vanderpool released that, and I've been using it for years, so that's what I got used to.
I use TSEd, which is basically it's the same as VI is under Linux. It would have been named VI, except for the fact that VI is a device name under OS-9 and NitrOS-9. So
yeah, that's Dale Lear's, right?
Yeah, well, it's a patched version of the Tandy TS Edit, is what it is. I'm talking the one I use actually.
Okay.
So it's
I think Dale wrote I think Dale wrote the original TS Edit, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So yeah, then it is his, and this is a patch that just allows it to run on OS-9 Level 2 screens, and and the 80 column mode, etc.
Okay. One of the questions that I think Curtis answered in the actual text chat was Davey Mitchell says what programming labels exist for it. Curtis said yes, it supports C, assembly, Fortran, COBOL, several assemblers, etc. 6E, Karen says there is a C compiler. Yes, there is a C compiler.
Yeah, there's a Pascal too, if I remember correctly.
Now, did this run on Dragons too? Would OS-9 run on a Dragon?
Level 1 did.
Level 1 ran on a Dragon.
There's a special version of it for the Dragon, actually. Because they had a real serial port built in. So the terminals actually on Level 1 ran easier on a Dragon than it did on the original CoCo 1 and 2. Because you could run a full speed terminal.
Speaking of terminals, there's a piece of terminal software that I wrote. The source code is on most of those disk images that I mentioned, along with a bunch of other source code in the sources directory. But this particular program, it's called XCOM 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually an interesting program because one of the things it did was, to my knowledge, I think it was the first program to ever send high-resolution graphics over the modem.
Using a display code?
Yeah, what it did was it passed through the OS-9, all the OS-9 control codes.
Yeah,
so,
we had a PC one called OS-9 term that did that too.
Okay.
We wrote.
But I think this predated that and a lot of the other terminal programs for OS-9. There was one or two others that were out there, but they didn't they didn't have the features that this one came along, and OS Term is a nice program.
KBCom was a good commercial one that did VT100 really well.
But it came out after I did my release of XCOM 9 for level 2.
Oh yeah, quite a bit later. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did support the double high and double wide characters though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So mine would just pass through whatever control codes were sent through the modem, and would send them to the OS-9 screen for OS-9 to interpret. And so if you sent the control codes to switch to a graphics mode and redefine the screen, and then you sent control codes to draw, boxes, circles, geometrical shapes, whatever, all that would get passed through, including the fill commands, etc.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had that too with the IBM PC program called OS-9 Term that we wrote.
That kind of sounds like what Prodigy did. Prodigy was one of the first ones that had like vector art graphics.
This predates them though by a considerable amount.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So,
and you could do overlay windows and all kinds of stuff too, if I remember correctly too, just like our version.
Yep. Yes, you can. And so what happened there? That was another case where I had some people. And I was demonstrating this bulletin board at a computer meeting, and I had somebody log in, and we had people cluster around the table and were watching. And you would you had a regular text login, it said login : and you type a new user or you type in your username, and then it would come up and ask password. It was a OS-9 login prompt, and then it ran the bulletin board, and on the receiving side we had it running XCOM 9 on another CoCo, and right after login. This thing pulled up, it basically did a rotating 3D tunnel effect. And I swear the guy sitting in front of the keyboard just about fell out of his chair when it did that. He thought he had fallen into one of those cyber movies that was popular around that time period.
Yeah, it was really cool because we did the same thing. Like we wrote programs that would pop an overlay window for menus and stuff like that, and you could run it on the PC running off the CoCo, and have a full PC keyboard and everything else. But you could actually run like the D disk editor or View or all these utilities that use the screen uniquely to the OS-9. It would run on the PC just fine. Same as you did with the CoCo version with XCOM 9, where you could run all the stuff remotely. You could change the screen mode. I want to change the PC to 40 columns or 80 column graphics, or I want to change the colors, and all that stuff all worked.
Yeah. Yeah, that came on the PC. That came much later, though.
Yeah, I think we did ours in. I'd have to ask Bill because a friend of ours, James West, wrote it was about 89, 90. I think we did that one.
An interesting thing is the name of the bulletin board that we ran this on, which predated the movie of this name by a long time. The bulletin board was called The Matrix.
Oh wow. That's Windows 2
and so
worse.
It did this twisty 3D box that sprung out at you, and then it drew in high-res vector graphics the words "Welcome to the Matrix," and it cleared the screen and it put up a standard BBS menu with pop-up windows and stuff like that, which weren't that common at the time either. So it really got some attention for the people that had logged into it and seen it.
Hey Curtis, if I want to pull up Rogue, what do I got to do to make the fonts come out first?
Make JW first.
Make JW?
GW.
GW.
Make graphics window is what it stands for.
Short for Make Graphics Window. By the way, that is actually, remember they were discussing earlier how you could create a text file with a sequence of commands and then run it as an executable? Make GW is actually such a file. It is actually a text file with a sequence of commands in it that sets up your graphics window.
Okay, so if you were to copy that into like your commands folder off of the root of DD, would that work from any path you were in because it's in the environment variable?
It's not an environment variable, but yeah, if you put it in the default commands folder, it would run from anywhere.
It would be part of the default path.
Yeah,
that's what I meant to say.
Execution path. Yeah.
All right, so if you wanted to copy that, make GW to your /DD/commands, you could type that from anywhere and take any window and turn it into graphics mode.
Yeah. Though the one unique thing to make GW for Rogue does, it actually loads a special font for Rogue with your little characters. So some of your European character set disappears and it gets replaced with, pieces of gold and shields and stuff.
Steve.
Hello, David Ladd. Welcome to the Dungeons of Doom. Yeah, so here's my character. So this is technically 80-column text, but some of the fonts have been replaced with like stick figures and swords and gold and treasure chests and stuff.
It's actually running a 640 by 192 by 2 color window.
Okay.
With a OS-9 has built-in text handling. Like if you remember HPrint on the CoCo RS-DOS, well, you actually run everything natively when you kick into graphics mode, and all the font stuff is handled by OS-9 itself. So it just treats it just like a normal hardware text screen, except in this case you can redefine your character set,
which is handy. Okay, so yeah, this is wow. And what is it? S for slow.
Shift F.
Shift F for to turn off the fast mode.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this was a pretty popular game for the time, right? Rogue from Epic, so kind of like a dungeon crawler.
Yeah, I played it a lot. Way too much.
Kestrel.
This one played well over the modem, too.
Oh, really? That's interesting because it's text-based. Now, how do you do screen positioning over a modem? Is there like ANSI codes or the equivalent of ANSI?
That's what we were just talking about.
Okay.
Like XCOM 9 supported, like there is escape codes, etc., for doing all these commands in OS-9 itself, and you just pass those over the modem to the other terminal or other computer, and as long as that computer knows the same codes, it's like VT100 or VT52 or ANSI, then it'll just do the same thing over there.
Hey, Curtis. Mm-hmm. Too bad those utilities still weren't around, because this would be kind of cool to still use those on an old PC.
Well, XCOM 9, I think Barry does still have around. It's OS-9 term that I had put on CompuServe back then, and then the machines that I had it at work got recycled or whatever years later, and I kind of had forgotten it was there. And I hadn't kept a copy myself, so once CompuServe shut down, I don't know who else might have it, but still trying to find it.
So this is pretty neat. Now, the other thing too is I'm not sure how well this translates to YouTube, but how well you guys can see this. But this is Ed Snyder's RGB to S video adapter, and these 80-column text looks pretty damn good to me.
Looks good here. I can read it.
It's pretty clear. So this is like having a very good RGB monitor. What the hell just happened here?
Fell down a trap.
I got teleported. So yeah, trap. This is die bat. All right, so yeah, I can switch around between different screens here, and it's pretty impressive. So now, am I going to switch over and live my life in OS-9? That's probably not going to happen right away. But will I play around with OS-9? Oh, yeah, sure. Am I interested in learning a little bit more about this? Yeah. You know what I really like to do is take something like the Interbank incident and copy that to a folder and a hard drive and run that off of one thing and either do that. It was
designed to do that, actually. Interbank's one of the first hard drive-enabled games that was ever released.
Yeah, so I'd like to be able to figure out how to do something like that. The King's Quest games, run them from a hard drive. Now, from what I understand right now, I can't launch a King's Quest game from this one because I'm not booting with the right... I forgot how Bill explained it, but I'm not booting with the right VDG driver or something like that. I'm not booting into a 32-column mode, so I can't play a King's Quest game right now from this OS-9 hard drive.
I don't think you put it in a descriptor or maybe even the CoVDG module. That some of the games used the older CoCo 1.2 VDG module because that added a few things for doing direct screen writes with the high-res CoCo 3 modes. Now, Bill and I did add a couple system calls to the regular graphics driver, so you can now do the same thing on the regular one, which we were kind of hoping everybody would switch to instead of having to run both of these things just to run CoCo 3 stuff. But I don't know how much that ever fully took off.
I have the images that I set up for their prefab images for their Color Computer 3 have both the 32-column modes and the high-res modes in the same boot.
Yeah. Are you running WinInt on that or just GraphInt? Or CoWin?
I think I'd have to go back and look. I think I'm running... I want to say I'm running WinInt, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was the other thing, because we had 3 levels of drivers. We had the CoVDG, which ran all the little CoCo 1 and 2 stuff like Interbank and Cave Walker, etc. And then we had the graphic one, which was meant more for 128K machines because it was a lot smaller. And then we had the WinInt one, which actually gives you the high-level menu handling you need for G-Shell and Multiview and any Multiview style games. So basically, you'd need the Win one and you'd need the VDG one to be able to run everything. And I think Bill didn't have time to get that quite running on this particular boot.
Yeah, I have the multi-view works on my boot.
Okay, then you have
VDG
CoWin for
game-
sure then.
The VDG games work, and the other stuff like Rogue and whatnot work. I've got all three things can be started up. The only
Now, does
thing
your
that
CoVDG, does it actually run the old CoCo 1 and 2 games? Because I know David and I tried it from the repository, and it looks like they're using the tiny version, which doesn't have the CoCo 1 and 2 compatible stuff.
my boot does. It will run almost all the games. The only thing I could not get to run was Cave Walker. And that's a strange story there because Cave Walker actually runs using my boot on VCC, but it does not run using my boot on MES or on a physical CoCo, which is interesting. But everything else does run. Like Biosphere runs. Bunch of the other games run. There's a bunch of stuff I've got on there that runs in COVDG VDG
Okay, so you do
mode
have the
there
full version
by
then.
my phone. Yeah. So yeah, I've got everything.
See, this is the reason we
yeah.
have to make this master boot for everybody that has everything, and we have to figure what's wrong with Cave Walker too. But
Yeah, I would love. I have tried to dig into that. I know machine language programming, and I am familiar with the OS-9 kernel and the drivers and whatnot. But unfortunately, my level of knowledge stops just short of being able to figure this out in an effective period of time.
Yeah.
So
time's the greatest
I
enemy.
went in there and poked around, but I could not figure it out. And it's something that has to do with the way the hardware is handled too, because on VCC, amusingly enough, it works. But on a real color computer, it does not.
Yeah, that is strange how some things work in an emulator and don't work in other things. But I guess that is a nice fringe benefit to emulating stuff.
Now, this is one case. Probably VCC should probably break this because it's not emulating something faithfully.
Right. Somebody had asked a question earlier. Steve Powell, did you guys cover how to get NitrOS 9 up and running using an SD card on a CoCo 3? I had to leave the meeting for a while. We haven't covered how to do it. I have it. Somebody gave it to me. What we are talking about is we're going to provide links where you can download some pre-configured hard drive images. Barry Nelson has a few available as we're discussing. And so when we have those links to share...
Mount my image and type DOS.
Yeah. Or if you
launch
if you
it
do
from the launcher.
Yeah, the SDC Explorer will let you launch it from there. So
I think I'm losing my connection here.
Okay. But yeah, we will make some links available in the near future, Steve Powell, to this. And I think that's probably a good goal, is to have a pre-configured, fairly plug-and-play image for the masses to get their hands on and play with. And then we can get into, in a future CoCo Talk, some more of the technical stuff, like how do you build a disk image and how do you build a hard drive and how can you customize the modules based on what your needs are or aren't, because it seems like it's a somewhat modular operating system.
It is very modular.
And so, and I think that is some of the challenges, that there are so many different modules, and there's been so many hands in all these different cookie jars too, I would imagine too. There's probably some fragmentation on the different versions of the modules and the utilities and things like that.
Yes.
So it sounds like
the thing I don't understand, the current repository seems to be mostly up-to-date stuff, but they've gone kind of retro, I guess, with some of the other utilities. Like the DIR that we'd last released in 1999-2000 had wildcards built in. The one in the repository does not. So they went back a version. So there's a few little oddities like that to make this ultimate hard drive image. I want to clean all that stuff up and get everything as modern as possible. Like the play command, you were hitting before. The repository one's like one that was written like in 1987 or 8. Not the one I did, 5-6 years later and added, Amiga support and Mac support and Sun AU support and WAV file support.
Wow.
Not to mention Orchestra 90 and a few other things. You can play stereo on there too.
Nice. Nuke Junkie is asking, where is the documentation available, or is it all within the help? Well,
it's not all within the help.
There is a wiki. I do have in the description here the link to the NitrOS 9 primary project page, and from there you can get to a wiki. I don't know how up to date that wiki is, but from there you can also get to the download GitHub for NitrOS 9 as well.
And I believe the OS 9 Level 2 manuals are on the Color Computer Archive.
OS 9 Level 2 manuals?
Yeah, which is
Okay.
like this. This is the level 2 manual here, and it's quite thick, so it's a lot of reading. But that
Okay.
covers like
this is
baseline, the
the
language, and a
OS-9.
bunch of things.
Go ahead, Bear.
The OS-9 stuff definitely applies to NitrOS 9.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, if anybody wants to learn, NitrOS 9, they can definitely start by reading the OS-9 manuals, and 99% of it is the same as what NitrOS 9 would be. Okay.
Okay.
There's basically just some
The only
additions.
difference-
Like we've added some
difference
system
is like
calls,
the
we added
save
some
command
display
and
codes, yeah.
syntax. But most of it is the same.
Yeah.
Did I hear mention of a PC terminal program that understands OS-9 codes?
That's the one I'm trying to find. We uploaded it to CompuServe way back when we wrote it, but unfortunately I didn't keep it when the CoCo got retired from work. And CompuServe, of course, shut down their CoCo section and wiped out all the files. So I'm hoping somebody else downloaded it because I cannot find a copy myself. Or the source.
Please find that. That would be so useful for myself, and I'm sure lots of other people.
Yeah,
Because,
David and I have been trying to find it. It's called OS-9 Term. It was written in Borland Pascal or Borland C. I can't remember. But we had overlay windows and everything else running. You could change screen modes and all that kind of stuff too.
So that means if you used a modern Windows PC as a terminal to the CoCo, you could get the output on that PC terminal as if you were on the console of the CoCo. You could change your color modes and your 80 column modes and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, I literally ran that at work. I had a 386 DX40, one of the AMD chip ones, and I was actually just used as a terminal for the CoCo 3.
That means that we could run terminal emulators of this thing, run this program, and then adapt it so that if we could do the code so it adapted to use Telnet instead of a serial port, we could have color computer BBSs running on either emulator or physical hardware and get all the graphics and all the color codes and everything on people's PC consoles.
Yeah. The only limitation we hit, and I'm sure you hit the same thing, is that you can't run mouse-driven programs because there's no way to pass the SS mouse parameters.
Yeah,
it's manual.
OS-9 has no remote mouse support.
Okay.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we could put an OS-9 server in the cloud and then have multiple terminals connect to it over IP via Telnet, and we can create OS-9 cloud computing.
Yep. Like we even had a multi-user BBS from Alpha Software, and we modified it with Keith Alfonso's blessing, the guy that wrote it, and we actually ran it internally. We had multi-user chat rooms, so some of our staff wanted to have a virtual meeting. They would just hit this CoCo-based chat room from their offices on these terminals. We have like 6 people in one chat and 2 in another or something like that. So we could have multi-user chats. We had single-user sysop chats if they wanted to get a hold of me or Bill. Yeah, it was just a ton of stuff you could do. I mean, it basically is Unix.
I've got source code to a BBS that I did a lot of. I wrote almost all of it, and I pulled in some other stuff to hook into it. But it's mostly a multi-user BBS shell, and I've still got all of that.
Yeah, we've got some of it. Like when I tried pulling the old work backup disks, we have some, but not all. Like we wrote MTSMon. Bill wrote it, which is basically the TSMon time sharing with some improvements. Plus, it's only one process for as many shells as you want or many users you want. So it would take one process 8K block for 8 users logged in, as opposed to TSMon, which actually takes 8K for every single iteration on every single serial port.
Sounds like you duplicated a lot of what I had.
Yeah, probably. There was a bit of an invite too back then too, because I mean there was the CompuServe forum where Kevin Darling and some of the other bigwigs in OS-9 were, and that's where I was. And then there was all the Delphi guys, and I mean Rick's talked about it before too, where there was a bit of a rivalry between the two. So a lot of stuff was done, independently of each other, because I couldn't afford Delphi here in Canada at the time. It was way more expensive than CompuServe was.
I did modifications to TSMon, and I also did heavy modifications to login and password, so that login and password would encrypt the passwords on disk.
It's just a text file. You go list it and find everybody's password.
So what I did was I did a destructive. When you typed in your password, it would generate a destructive hash of the password, so that you could not recover it the other way. But if you typed in the same password, it would generate the same hash. And when you logged in, it would compare the hash against what was stored on the disk. So, and I've still got that modified login program, and I've got the assembly source to it as well.
Yeah, we have the assembly source code for that MTS mon I was talking about earlier. We did find that, but I didn't find the login, unfortunately.
Mine was just called TSMon, but I disassembled the original TSMon and then patched the living bejesus out of it.
Yeah, we did that at first, and then we just said, screw it, we'll just write our own.
Yeah, there's a copy of a CoCoTALK driver somewhere around. I still have, I think. But I know when I posted the source code originally to it, there were a whole bunch of no-op instructions for no reason that I could figure out. And so I commented them out in the source code when I did my patching, and put a comment, waste of my precious CPU cycles.
Yeah, I think we ended up going, I think we based the NitrOS-9 one, if I remember correctly, on Bruce Eisted's SACIA, because that was also supported the serial mouse drivers if you want to run Logitech and PC mice. Plus, it had a lot better buffering, and the hardware receive and transmit interrupts were both enabled, and a bunch of other things that were a lot more efficient than the stock one.
Yeah, I enabled the interrupts, and I got stuff like that. I did not support mice. Mine was designed to running a bulletin board correctly. So its purpose in life is to handle the I/O from a modem and to do it very well and do it efficiently.
Yeah.
But no mouse support or anything else. But it ran the bulletin board solidly, and it did that.
Yeah.
So.
That was, like I said, though, that was a thing, and Nick has mentioned this in the past too, that OS-9 became quite the hackers thing. And unfortunately, we had a bunch of independent people that didn't talk to each other, all hacking the same things over and over again, as we just discovered between you and me. So that's one thing about the level 2 version 3 upgrade, because they all got together, and then like a lot of the vendors, like they mentioned, like Frank Hogg and Sardis Technologies and Burke and a bunch of these others, all worked together on this. So they're going to make a brand new base platform for everybody to run off of with new drivers and stuff, which would have been beautiful to have had at the time if it hadn't gotten canceled.
Yeah, I saw the CoCoTALK driver stuff later, but running mine because mine didn't have the mouse stuff in it and everything else, mine was smaller, but still got the job done for what I wanted. So
yeah.
So what else do we need to cover right now in this introduction to OS-9? We've definitely shown it off. We've talked about it. We've talked about the fact that we're going to make available some links to some hard drive images, and I believe we'll probably have a few people working on refining some of these images as well. So that's good news. And surprisingly, Nick Morentis has been very, very quiet. Nick, what say you?
I would call
Nick?
it well behaved.
Sorry.
I made a comment earlier, and I'm hoping to get I saw you are playing Mahjong on OS-9.
Yeah.
So is that readily available somewhere? I never heard a reply back to that question.
I'm assuming it's on the archive somewhere. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I'd have to check.
I haven't been able to find it. I actually have
there's two versions. There's an OS-9 Shanghai that was actually written in Base 09 by, I think it was Sean Driscoll.
That I have.
Which is totally independent.
That I have.
Yeah.
Right, but I like the version that's in the program pack, and I actually own the program pack. And
yeah. I know Rick likes this version too.
Right, but I have not found. I know that there used to be a patch or a mod for it to load it onto OS-9, but I have not been able to find it anywhere. So.
Well, I like I said, I'm running a hard drive that came from Bill Noble, so maybe reach out to Bill and to see where that particular version's available.
So maybe it's in his image, and that's how you got it.
Well, that is exactly how I got it, because I have his image. But how can we get it to you? I would say definitely check with Bill, because he's got it, and I know Bill was involved in the port of it. So
yeah, he did the first port.
Then, yeah. So if it's in his image on his website, then I can grab the image and then mount and pull that piece out and consolidate it together. Maybe put it on a separate floppy for people that want that one thing, and put it on and merge into my image as well.
Yeah, I know Alan Huffman has it too, and in fact, he has some alternate tile sets that I don't think Bill and I have, because we made one alternate tile set that Alan DeCock did, which is kind of a playing card set. But Alan had like traffic lights and stuff too, so he's got some extra stuff I didn't see, because we made it so that you could design your own.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Now, one of the things I noticed now too, because we've launched Rogue, and Rogue has changed some of the text fonts. When I launch up G Shell right now, some of these fonts are screwed up too. So
Well, not screwed up. They're reloaded to what Rogue is using. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, that has become a global setting regardless of which terminal window I'm in now, right?
That depends. I mean, when you create a font number from 0 to 255 or 1 to 255. So some people, because once again, independent developers created their new fonts, but they use the same font number, which means as soon as you load one, it overwrites the other. But you have enough room to make 255 unique fonts.
Okay.
Interesting. I did not remember that.
There's like a 106 column font too that David really likes if you want to get more text on your screen too.
Wow.
But is there a driver for that?
That's built in.
A window driver.
No, the driver's built in. That's a built-in GraphDriver. It has been from stock, yeah. It's the 6-pixel wide font number 2.
So how can I change it right now? Can I change that from a command prompt?
If you want to see it, you can type in the following display command to switch. Do display.
Let me switch over to a big screen so we can see this.
Okay, and I think you have to be in a graphics mode to do that, right?
That's what we'll be getting him to do here.
Okay.
So 1B. 24 space 24. 1B.
Right,
space 20. Space. Let's pick 5.
Okay.
Space 0. Space 0. Space 50. Space 19. Space 1B. Space 3A. Space C8. Space 2.
This is very
1E.
1E echo.
1B.
1 Bravo.
Yeah. 2-1. I think that's.
Luckily, this is very easy to remember. Anybody can do this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What you
Did I screw it up?
Recommend?
Just hit clear, maybe.
For any of these things that you would commonly want to do, you would put them into a script file, and then you would have a command like COL 160, and you would just type that, and then that would run this command.
Right.
It might be maybe Bill doesn't have the one installed too.
Okay. Well,
like
at least I've gotten nicer colors out of my command set now, my command prompt anyway. So.
Have you got any other programs we can look at?
What's that?
Have you got any other programs you can demonstrate or look at? You had a demo folder there before.
Editor that other guy was talking about's in there. You could try.
Oh, come on, editors! We know these guys want to see the games.
Okay, these are all end.dmo. How do you launch a DMO file?
I don't know what a demo file is.
That sounds like Deskmate something. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a folder called demo.
I wonder if that's part of the nano stuff that Bill's working on.
How about Zone Runner? I wonder if Zone Runner is on that image. Zone Runner is an OS-9 game.
Let's take a look.
Yep.
Zone Runner. Yeah.
Is that like Load Runner?
No.
No.
It's a strategy space trading game.
What do I type in right now? Zone.
Barry, do you remember?
Zone Runner.
I have
by
two problems
Tandy
with
Corporation.
I know the name of the game, but it's been a while since I've played it, and I don't know the layout of this hard drive. So,
Greg L. Zumwalt too.
This is a basic program by the looks of it.
I don't think so.
I think it's in C actually, but it was one of the very first games released, so it was before they really knew what they were doing. I'll be honest. Yeah. Plus, this one's rescalable. If you put it on any size window you put, it'll fit the game onto it. So that's one of the reasons it's slow, because it's rescaling.
Okay.
Or at least it will give it a heroic effort.
Look at this. I can adjust I've got sliders here where I can adjust my shields, weapons, and engines. This reminds me of like Wing Commander, where you had to manage your energy resources.
Yep.
It's an interesting game.
Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing at this point, but
that's fine.
Another mouse-driven game.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a reason out there somewhere for it.
Do we know anybody who's working on a mouse adapter at any time, David Ladd?
Well, I think there is a driver for serial mouse on OS-9.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, David's working on a PS2 to CoCo mouse adapter.
I'm working on a PS2 to CoCo adapter also. I'm using an Arduino. And when I'm having the Arduino read the PS2 codes, okay, because there's a PS2 library for the Arduino.
Is there a project registry at some point in time where
That's something else we need?
Hasn't this been discussed in the podcast too?
Then you plug the Arduino. Here's the theory. At least I've got it working somewhat. You plug the Arduino's pulse width modulated, the PWM modulated outputs into the color computer's analog inputs on the joystick port. And the Arduino reads the PS2 mouse movements and then adjusts the voltage level on the outputs to simulate the movement of a color computer mouse or joystick.
And that's basically what David's does too, right?
That was what my first version did, but I had a little bit too much, even with the low pass filter, I had too much flux, so I switched to a dual channel SPI DAC.
Okay. So you were getting too much jitter?
Yes.
Did you try changing the frequency of the PWM?
Actually, I changed the bitage because the frequency on the 16-bit counter adjusted the frequency. But if it was on anything other than a certain one, it made it even really worse. So
what I was able to do was I was able to crank up the PWM frequency to reduce that. I'm fiddling around with that in a low pass filter to see if I can get something usable. But I have been making progress.
Well, just to give you an idea, the prototype that I've got now, I've added a pass-through. Well, I guess I wouldn't say pass-through. I've added a second 6-pin DIN to it, so that way I can pass the joystick through the Arduino. So that way I just hit the center mouse button, and it will switch from using the counter for the X and Y from the PS2's data to the X and Y and left-right buttons from the other 6-pin DIN, so that way I can keep a joystick hooked up at all times.
Steve, Sub Battle needs to run from a VDG screen. That's why that's not working.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you need to go to a 32-column screen to launch. Sub is another excellent OS-9 game. That is one of the best sub simulators I have seen.
Okay, and this one I won't be able to do right now because of how I've booted up.
Yes.
It's a missing module.
Right.
Yeah, Bill didn't get that in there in time, I think.
I did from my image, so if you find mine and download it, you should be able to run that.
Okay.
But yeah, another thing I was looking at is using one of the slightly larger Arduinos with more lines and just using 16 output ports. So 8 for the X and 8 for the Y. And just doing it that way and having a resistor ladder network.
Yeah, that's what Jim suggested, but then when you start going to the larger Atmega chips, then you're looking at the cost that it would have just been to just go for one of the cheap SPI dual channel DACs. So,
well, how much does an SPI dual channel DAC go for?
$2 or $3.
Okay. Well, and how much were you looking at one of the larger Atmega chips going for?
I think going from the Atmega 328P that I'm using, which was 2, I think then switching to a larger Atmega, at least that were in dip form, then jumped it up to like 5.
Oh hell! So mine would be horribly expensive compared, because I'm looking at using a full-fledged Arduino board and just doing it that way. So, well, I've got to drop off of here.
Okay.
Thanks I have a tree that I have to chop down.
thanks for stopping in, Barry. It was good to hear from you. We haven't heard from you in a while, and it was nice to have some input on OS-9. And I look forward to, when your time permits, to get some of these links, and I'll be happy to share them.
I will be sending them over to you.
Okay.
All right. Well, later, guys.
Okay,
Bye.
Barry. Okay. How do I load some utilities into Multiview, Curtis?
Well, no, I said you could show some of them, like there's the calendar and the...
How do I do that? Is that the G shell?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my fonts are screwed up in G shell, but it is probably still going to work, right? Okay, calculator. So these are kind of like widgets.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my
this is
screen,
your. This is where you can place it and then resize it to whatever size you want your calculator to be.
Ah. Okay. Now, can I actually type on the keyboard too and not have to use my mouse?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay, so if I do 5, yeah, it does read that, and then +5, enter,
Equals maybe?
equals 10. There we go. Okay, so 5 + 5 = 10, for those of you who were not aware of that. Okay. Now,
There's a hex calculator too, which is handy.
Oh, neato, hex. Okay.
And if you go back to the
Jerry Adams says,
window, you can pick one of the other utilities and put it beside the calculator somewhere too.
okay, how do I do that?
Just go
How do I
back to
get back?
view. Or
Okay, so for example, like calendar.
calendar, I think, is a full screen app if I remember, or pretty close to it. It wants a minimum size. That's what that little thing was.
Okay. Month 07. The day is 22. The year is 2017. Oh, this is actually supporting 4 digits. Okay. And here we go. Today is the 22nd, and we're showing up in red. How do you like that?
Yeah, and then you can edit little notes and stuff. And blah blah blah.
Can't do this with the modern computer, people.
I mean, personally, I would pick a different set of colors. I would use the grayscale 3D look. That's, I think, looks the best.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
The control panel, if you wanted to see what it looks like.
I got the Tandy symbol back at least. Getting this joystick to...
Yeah, they kind of high-res joystick interface, but...
All right, so I just changed the RGB settings here, or...
Yeah, you see the colors in the bottom there, you can just adjust. So click on the white one, for example.
Uh-huh.
That'll switch to that color. Put those all at once.
Okay.
The bluish purple one.
Uh-huh.
Set those 2s. And click the red one. And set all the 3s.
All the way to the top, huh?
That's the way I usually run it.
Okay. Now, how do I get back to the little widgets I had open before?
The Tandy menu. Do you have any still running right now, or?
I don't know.
Hit clear. I mean, they're running on a different window. That's why.
I think he hit the X, so I think you closed them anyway.
How do you? Well, I didn't know how to get out of them. That's probably why. Okay, so for example, so here's the clock widget. I place it over here, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my clock.
Now clear back to multi-view again.
Ah.
And then go select another widget. Probably we'll pick calculator.
Okay.
You can put and resize that too if you want.
Okay. Yeah, the gray on black is horrific, but that's okay. All right.
Okay. Just to show you, we were talking about that font that has the 106 columns. Actually, he does have it installed because it's working. Because if you take a look when you go to the the clock and calculator screen, the active app, if it's highlighted, will have a thicker font. That's a standard 80-column font, and the inactive one will have a little thinner 106-column font.
Okay, so I can't now, I can't put the calendar on the same screen as this, but now can I move these guys around?
No,
can't move them.
That's one of the things we need to rewrite.
Okay, so this is now, this is technically called multi-view because I can switch between the normal G shell. I can't get back to the
Multi-view
normal.
is the high-level menu handling part of it, like all the drop-down menus and stuff. That's all built in, and G shell itself.
Okay. I can't seem to get back to the normal G shell screen right now. I still have this.
Yeah, it's still trying to do that. There's a way to tell it to go to a different screen. Is it space bar? Like when you go to the one that has the try hitting space.
Execution terminated. Press any key. There we go. Okay. So now I should be able to clear through. Okay. So here is now looking at some like widgets. Clock in a calendar. This is kind of DeskMate-y right now. Looking at this kind of crap. Speaking of DeskMate, did they make DeskMate for OS-9?
Yes, actually, it only runs on OS-9. There's a CoCo 1 and 2 version and a CoCo 3 version.
I wonder if that's on his hard drive.
I don't know.
And if so, where would it be? Apps, maybe?
Sure. I didn't make this drive image, so I have no idea where he's got anything.
Come on, you and Bill are partners. You should know this kind of shit, right? All right, so we got Dynaspell, Publisher, Illustrator, Profile, DL Logo. Oh, there's Dale Layer Logo.
Yeah, another programming line.
Desk. That might be DeskMate right there.
Yeah. I don't know if it runs in a graphics screen or if it runs in a VDG screen. I honestly don't remember.
All right, so now I have to do a dir CMDS to see what I have to launch here for this thing here. It's kind of scary. I'm already starting to think like OS-9. I just type in desk. Okay, DeskMate error. If retries, okay, press any key to retry. Okay, press break to abort. Okay, nope, not working for whatever reason. Maybe it's the video, whatever.
Yeah, I like I said, I'd have to see how he had it set up, and I know he didn't get everything fixed in there that he wanted
Right,
to.
yeah. One of the things I wanted to respond to is that Jerry Adams says, I want to see an OG dial into a I want to see OG dial into a BBS. I grew up on BBSs, man.
Yeah, me too.
So
now one of the things that I have done this, but it's been 4 or 5 years since I've done it. But with the drive wire and the current NitrOS-9, you can telnet and do the multi-users via that. So therefore,
that's right. Yeah.
So you can actually get multi-user from people remotely logging into your real CoCo or emulator. So you can actually run NitrOS-9 in an emulator like VCC with CPU cycle limiting turned off, so that way it's running as fast as the PC could run, and you could have the OS-9 environment that way. So all kinds
that's
of
interesting.
toys.
Jerry Adams was asking for DeskMate. Do we have to close all the other windows? I couldn't tell you. I ran DeskMate on a Tandy 1000. That's what I ran it.
I'm trying to remember because there was something hard coded in DeskMate, and I can't remember if it needed to run off a VDG window or if you had to run it from term. Because there was a couple of the old programs that were kind of designed to run off term only. So if you're running it from W1 or W2, it had no idea what to do. But I don't remember. I haven't used DeskMate in years, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we've done a decent job on introducing people to OS-9 and showing some of its capabilities. This is not meant to answer every single question, and it's not meant to be super technical, but I think it's a fairly good overview of what the operating system looks like, and what we hope to be able to provide in the future will be links to where you can download some plug-and-play images. And when those become available, I'll put them on my website, ogsteviestroh.com. And we'll look forward to more OS-9 talks in the future where we can show more things off. And so, you know, I've got some of my pet projects right now. Right now, I'm trying to finish my basic program using Extended Color Basic. I want to do an assembly language product at some point in time as well. When I've done a few projects in RS-DOS, I do want to try a few projects in OS-9. I would love to play with Basic 09 just a little bit. Jerry says it's way better than Windows 10. The updates don't crash it as often. So I would like to try to like maybe convert one of my programs I wrote in BASIC to run in Basic 09, and I would like to try, once I've learned how to assemble the hard way, maybe to assemble something in OS-9, because it's probably going to be easier. Like we mentioned, being able to pipe your output to a different window and kind of watch what you're doing while you're working on it. Whereas on a normal RS-DOS situation, we don't have the debug capability like you have in MAME. But with OS-9, you might achieve some level of that visibility into your debugging while you're working on your code.
Yep.
Yeah. So that would be interesting. That'll be
Just
interesting.
out of curiosity, just one quick little thing here. You're running about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 programs right now?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Right now I have this program running right now, which is the whatever that is.
Zone Runner, yeah.
Zone Runner. Okay, now I have these widgets here.
Okay.
And then I have Rogue. Then I have G Shell, and then I have a command prompt.
Okay, type in mfree, M-F-R-E-E.
Okay. 80K free out of my 512.
Yeah.
Or
and remember, you're running graphics windows, which are taking 32K each for several of your games and stuff too. So.
Okay.
But it's very like OS-9 was based on Unix and is the subdirectories and data path directories and command execution directories is all based on Unix and Linux too, but it is much more memory efficient than the original versions of Unix were, and this kind of proves the point because you're using probably 120K just for screens, like the raw data for the screens. Never mind the programs all running. So
pretty neat. All right. Well, again, we have not heard a lot from Nick Marentis, so we really need to hear the leading nation's leading authority on OS-9.
I think he really liked the hex calculator. It'd be handy for his programming.
I have a real calculator here that does that. I don't need to boot up OS-9 to do that.
But Nick, you could be assembling in one window while you're creating graphics in another.
No.
Oh, that's what the Amiga's for. Right, okay.
Actually, that's a good point because the Amiga, when the CoCo OS-9 Level 2 and the multitasking, multi-user Windows stuff, the only thing at the time, because Mac was basically competitive task switching. Windows was on version 1, which if anybody's ever seen it, I don't think it did true multitasking either. The only other operating system that did was the Amiga OS. And that required a full 16-bit CPU.
Yeah, but ran a lot faster.
Well, of course it would. It was an 8 megahertz minimum machine with 16-bit and 32-bit registers, and we were talking,
Custom
6, 8, 9.
hardware.
Yeah. That was a good generation or two past.
So,
And it was a lot easier to use than OS-9.
and so that was interesting to read that thing that they were thinking about putting OS-9 on an Atari ST. What could have, should have, would have.
They did eventually.
Okay.
There was an Amiga version too. There was also a Mac version.
Okay. And because all of them were like on a 68,000, which was basically just the big brother to the 6809, I would imagine there were some, when it came to writing the code, there were some similarities, so they didn't have to start from ground zero when they had to build it, right?
Yeah, there was some of the core code was based on the same core code. There was a version of Basic 09 for OSK that also had some extra features, but basically you could take basic programs and almost not have to change anything and they would run.
Okay, so OSK meant OS-9 for the 68,000.
8,000, yeah.
Okay, so, whereas instead of the 6800 series that the 6809 is based on.
Yeah,
and then never saw it on the Amiga though.
What's that?
I'm not aware of it ever coming out on the Amiga.
It was in Europe.
One used
it was in Europe. I actually have seen it running.
Yeah, no one talks about it.
Well, no, Amiga had their own OS that was quite popular already. So did the Atari ST. Even OS 9000, which ran on PCs and DEC Alphas, same thing. I've seen it running, but you're not going to compete with the main one that the main hardware manufacturers supporting themselves. Not too many people, unless they're controlling microcontrollers or doing something weird, would get into that.
Right. Whereas, unlike Radio Shack, the CoCo didn't really have an operating system. So,
well, that's why more CoCos use RS-DOS.
Right. So, but I guess the point being, there is no other operating system to compete with OS-9 on the CoCo.
No. Not really. RS-DOS, I wouldn't call it.
Well, RS-DOS, really, because when you turn your computer on, RS-DOS and most applications that people use are RS-DOS.
All right. Well, we have reached the 2-hour point of CoCo Talk, which is about the normal average length. Do we want to? We can talk about a few more things, but do we want to put the OS-9 discussion to bed now?
We just wanted to do a general overview, what it's capable, a little bit of the history, a little bit of the unwritten history that never happened because of Tandy canceling the CoCo 3.
Right.
Just more mentions, just introduction. What is it and what does it do?
Have we beat this one to death?
I have one question.
Okay, Grant.
Basic 09. I mean, is that basically programming in BASIC for the OS-9?
Yep. It's a lot more extended in some ways. You have complete access to all the system calls in the operating system itself, so you can do all kinds of stuff. It's also much faster than RS-DOS BASIC because it's got integer variables as well as floating point and Boolean variables and complex type structures, all kinds of stuff. And you can compile it, sort of. It's more like JavaScript compile or Java compile. It's not a full compile to assembly, but it's kind of an intermediate thing.
And then you can have basic programs that call other basic programs.
Yep, or C programs or assembly programs or all kinds of stuff.
Cool, thank you.
All right, Mark says he's got to go. Thanks, Mark. All right, so before we end CoCo Talk, do you guys want to see the CoCo 3 version of Bomb Threat, which I looked at for the first time today?
Sure.
Certainly.
All right, so we're going to switch
it runs
this
Nitro OS-9, right?
That it does. So here's what I am going to show you. Let's see if I also have the...
that's nice, clean, and crisp
there. Okay, let me show you this right now. What you're looking at here, this is the RGB mode for Bomb Threat running on a CoCo 3. So you see the reds and blues, right?
Yep.
Now, when I uncheck this box, what we're looking at now is the composite mode on the same CoCo 3 coming out with exactly the same colors. So he is able to not have to switch the RGB palette between RGB and composite and get the proper red and blue colors on both RGB and composite.
Yeah, I think your capture card does twist it a little bit because we're getting those little vertical stripes, but
yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's going to look proper on the real screen.
Yes, yes. And so let me turn up the volume a little bit. So yeah, and so there's also a difference. So I'm going to show you first what it looks like on the RGB. Can you guys hear it okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So of course now I've got to move my joystick, or let me just move to my Black Beauty. Okay. So I want to wait for a bomb to explode, and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. Okay. Do you see how when the bombs explode, how the screen just turns white?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the RF capture mode. And when the bombs explode, do you see how the screen just shook like that? You see the screen shaking?
Kind of. I don't think we're getting enough frames to see it properly.
Okay, so what happens in the... wow, this Black Beauty joystick is really crappy. What happens when the bomb explodes is the screen actually kind of goes out of sync and shakes. And that only happens on the composite mode. And I discovered that today when I was recording my video that will be public in a little while. This explosion effect here is actually pretty cool. And I don't even think Rick was aware of it because it doesn't show up in MAME when you do it. So it has something to do with the composite signaling and how that is kind of screwing with the screen a little bit. But it reminds me of Canyon Climber.
Okay.
You know, when you completed that level, the screen shook. So yeah. So I just thought that was kind of cool. I've actually recorded a full gameplay video of it, and so I'll have that.
Is that your capture card doing that? Maybe.
Is it the card doing it? I don't know. I'll try it on a. I'll try it on a. I'll try it on a TV.
That's a good point. I never thought of that. It could be.
Yeah, I'll have to try it on an actual TV. But for my sake, it was a very cool fringe benefit to see the screen shake during explosions because it adds a sense of realism to it. You know, like the bomb is literally shaking my freaking television set, you know? So yeah, so there's a little peek at Bomb Threat running in RGB mode on a CoCo 3. I've got a full gameplay video that I will release in just a little bit, and so that'll come out. And yeah, the artifact colors, the red and blue colors in RGB mode look really good. It looks like your normal orange and blue colors. And so that's
a lot sharper.
Yeah, that's kind of another fringe benefit to doing this now, because when he did this in 1984, we didn't know the Color Computer 3 existed yet. So there's no way the original version could have supported an RGB mode on a computer that technically wasn't known to the public, you know? So that is kind of cool that we're getting that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jerry Adams says if it wasn't a feature before, maybe Rick will add it, right? And so, yeah, so that's the one thing is that, you know, the one downside, I guess, to developing on an emulation is that you really aren't able to know about weird things like the gimme sparkle and some just weird nuances that only occur on real hardware. You know, there's no way to tell about, for example, like an RF signaling refresh issue that causes screen shake. There's no way to know that on an emulator because you're not dealing with the actual RF output of the thing that I am seeing now. So I guess in a perfect world, you would, for convenience, you would develop on your emulator because it's faster and stuff. But then you would want to have real hardware to test on as well.
It on. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know if Rick has a CoCo yet, but I've offered to give him one in the past, and I'm going to extend that offer again. So I will donate one of my CoCos to Rick if it'll help him.
If possible, give him a CoCo 3 because I'd really like to see him do a new CoCo 3 game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe even have a 609 in it. I would like to see him make a 609 CoCo 3 game.
That would be kind of cool. The world would benefit from that, right?
And Nick would have some competition.
Get to the chopper!
Are you still recording?
Yes.
Well, of course, we got to get all these good comments on recorded
Right.
video.
So since we're kind of in the behind the scenes mode here, I'll show you one more thing too. I will show you guys the I'll show you the ending of my video of me escaping Bedlam. I just need to find it right now. I think it's, oh wow, so I've got a total of about 40 minutes in those two clips. So that's definitely going to require some editing. So all right, so let me switch the screen over. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to fast forward to just about the end. Okay. There we go. So so this is me playing Bedlam, and I did it in two different segments, and of course there's a lot of me going back and forth just being stupid and confused that I can hopefully edit out. But right now, these two clips we're looking at about 40 minutes. And so this is the one thing where I'm just not sure how well a text adventure is going to translate to a watchable video on YouTube. But again, anybody who's watching CoCo stuff, we're a different breed anyways, I guess. But I do want to, maybe I'll break it into sections or something. But so this is a yet to be edited, yet to be released video that will eventually show up on YouTube. So world premiere here, people. East-West hallway. Okay, I gotta go west.
You could voice it over with the voice of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's hallway. In the north, there's a green door. Picasso enters. Okay, on the north wall is one of Picasso's painted doors, which is closed. Oh my goodness, and now Picasso's door looks open. The painted door opens and you reveal an escape route. You have escaped. Wow. Okay. Well, so there you have it. That is me escaping Bedlam. And this is the first time I've played Bedlam, and I can't tell you how long. So that video has been recorded. I got to figure out how to edit it to make it as, as short as possible. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see what the demand is and the view count is for a text adventure. Like my CoCo arcade games get an average of like 100 views, right? So Pac-Man's gotten 100 views. How many views will Bedlam get? It's hard to say, you know? So to be determined what the audience is for this. But I guess who is the audience for any of this? If it's a retro game, it's somebody who's nostalgic for it. So if somebody's nostalgic for Bedlam, will they watch some jackass play Bedlam? We'll see. One of the things I would like to do at some point in time too, I know we've talked about this before, is to kind of like do a live stream where we crowdsource this, where we get a few of us together, putting our heads together, trying to figure out what to do, get some people watching, giving us some tips and suggestions and stuff too. So if we're trying to play something like Pyramid or Madness in the Minotaur or Rocket,
or one of the
these
Infocom games or something.
Yeah,
like
one
that
of the
too.
one of the more in-depth ones, to get a bunch of people to playing together might make it more interesting, because then it becomes a kind of a community event. You know, Jerry Adams says that Bedlam equals the best game of 1982. So.
I disagree, because Daggerath came out at the end of 82.
Dungeons of Daggerath, and one I need to get back to as well. That's a life goal, is to beat Dungeons of Daggerath too. I know I rage quit on that a few times. We need to get back to that one day. So.
So you use RS-DOS games, and what happens? You rage quit. So you just better stick with NitrOS-9.
Yes, because the games run
Actually,
so.
it was cartridge. There wasn't a disk basic at that point.
It was ROM based, right? So.
Well, it took place of the disk basic ROM, so kind of is.
Yes.
But OS-9, you get to rage quit before you even start the game.
No, it takes longer because you have to wait for it to boot.
Well, as long as he doesn't rage quit and cause the cartridge to pop out and fry his CPU.
Right.
Actually, a bit of trivia I'll just add in. I don't remember the exact month we first released version 1, but this year is the 25th anniversary of NitrOS-9.
Oh, wow. It's old enough to date now. Jerry Adams says, best text game of 1982 for Bedlam. Yeah, there's something unique about Bedlam where as a lot of the other text adventure games were a much more larger scale, bigger world to explore. This was a very finite, boxed-in room. But what I thought was unique about it was, number one, the premise. You're taking place in an insane asylum. That in itself is just very creative, you know. The fact that the solutions are random each time you play, that's different than most of your adventure games, which were very linear for the most part, you know. There was you didn't have to keep score, you didn't have to get treasure, you didn't have to necessarily fight any monsters. It was just figure out how to survive and escape. So it was kind of interesting, and you had this whole cast of characters where you had Napoleon Bonaparte, and you had Pablo Picasso, and the great Houdini, who's always trying to escape, and says, I'll get out of here in just a minute, don't help me, I'll get this, you know. I didn't come across the guy with the x-ray glasses, but supposedly there's somebody who thinks he has x-ray vision.
Yes.
I didn't come across that person in my game. And then there's the doctor wearing the bloody medical gown and carrying a syringe, who gives you a frontal lobotomy, you know. And then there's the nurse who says she looks like she's a part of the roller derby, you know, and just a big mean nurse and stuff. So it's a really interesting world they create. The text adventures were very much the theater of the mind. You had to imagine where you are. It was interactive fiction, which kind of drew me to that. And this one was very, I think, very much more fleshed out with characters than a lot of other text adventures necessarily were. So there were a lot of very cool and unique things about this particular one. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how this video does, what the public response to it is, and then hopefully the doctor dopes me up every time I run into a wall, is what Jerry Adams says. It says, because once he gets you, it just says, yes, you suddenly feel like wandering, you know. And then you typed in, what was it, plug or plug, or however you pronounce that. PLUGH was your command to unlobotomize yourself and stuff. So,
are you still talking about OS-9?
There's Nick Morentis. Somebody woke him up. So
yeah, you just had to say lobotomize.
So
you've been in any of those institutions lately, Nick?
No.
Just the last time you made a boot file.
Yeah, OS-9 will send you to Bedlam.
Where OS-9 people go when they burn out.
You call it an insane asylum, we call it a NitrOS-9 programmer's retirement home, whatever.
Hey, I actually have a OS-9 question about the C compiler.
Oh, okay.
Does it have to be? I know there's a patch for the to do the DD driver, but is there any other patches that are needed for NitrOS-9 or to take advantage of the 6309?
Well, the C compiler calls the RMA assembler, and the RMA assembler does have a 609 version called R63. I don't know if anybody has patched the C compiler itself to actually be intelligent enough to use the 609 commands. It wasn't when I last worked on it. We were just adding the ANSI preprocessor and some of the other stuff that was out commercially available or freely available. I don't know if in the last 10, 15 years since I was off of it, whether they've done any further updates to it. David, do you know?
Nope.
No, they haven't.
The last time,
no,
I don't know, because the last time I did any C programming in OS-9 is when it was still the full OS-9 stuff. That was before I even had NitrOS-9.
Okay.
So
maybe Bill will know, because maybe he's been a bit more active on the developer side of NitrOS-9 itself lately. He might know, but unfortunately he's too busy today.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have Bill on the call. But yeah, it was definitely good having Curtis here and even David Ladd, dare I say it. And
Nick, because he's the head of the NitrOS-9 users group. So
NitrOS-9 fan club president Nick Morentis. All right, so have we beat this one to death?
yes, I hear lunch calling.
You hear lunch calling. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody who was here in the past and in the present. Let me go back through the text chat real quick and acknowledge everybody there. So we started off with Richard Lorbieski, Jerry Adams, Davey Mitchell, Steve Powell, Jerry Adams. Did I say Jerry Adams already? Curtis Boyle was in there. Richard Cavell was in there. Who else? William Carlin was in here. Sixie, Karen was here. And Nolander. Who was that?
Davey Mitchell?
Davey Mitchell. Yeah, I think I mentioned him at least twice. Sixie, Karen, Davey Mitchell, William Carlin was here in the chat. Norlander, Solstice came by. Steve Powell came by. Nuke Junkie came by. A lot of chatter from Jerry Adams. And so, yeah, thank you all for being here. And another great CoCo Talk. And history has been made. Not only did I spend more than 2 hours playing with NitrOS-9, I didn't rage quit once. And we talked about it. And I can say, at least I have an appreciation for it now that I've seen it and touched it and play with it. I have an appreciation for it. Will I use it frequently? Probably not. But I am looking forward to this plug-and-play hard drive that we can all mess around with. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting some of Barry Nelson's images and a few other images that perhaps Curtis and David and Bill Noble can work on. Bring us some of the latest tools and some of the latest optimizations and things like that. One of the things I remember doing back in the days of DOS is I would have like a config sys file that I could choose different startup modes, like, because sometimes you needed more drivers for your CD-ROMs and for different things like that, and sometimes you didn't need as many drivers, and certain DOS games needed more conventional RAM than others. So I had custom auto exec and custom config sys files when I booted, so I could choose like configuration A, B, and C depending on what I needed for either fully loaded drivers or really, maximum RAM, stripped down RAM. Is there a way to do something like that in OS-9 where you can have custom boot options?
There are utilities you can link what boot file you want to be active on the drive, on a hard drive even. Mm-hmm. I think it was butil is the one I used to use all the time, but you would just say butil, okay, use my Sierra boot. Mm-hmm. And it would just relink that file, you hit reset, and it would reboot right up into that version. And
but it wouldn't be interactive at boot time.
Well, you could make it a menu to pick one. Yeah, you could just have a little batch file that you run in. It just says select. You want a Sierra boot. You want a level 1 and 2 game compatible boot. You want multi-view or whatever. You could do it that way too.
Okay.
It would just run that butil in the background.
So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, do you want people to learn this? Yes, but I think the people who want to learn are gonna learn it anyways. But on the other hand, I think if we had to pick a greater good, if we could make a plug and play, quote unquote, user friendly OS-9 boot image, I think it would get it in more hands and get more people to, mess around with it and see where they want to go from there. From there, the curious ones will say, okay, well, how do I do this myself, and how do I make my own boot options and stuff? But and I'm not. I hate to use the word dumb it down, but I think user friendly is, well, they kind of mean the same thing, but yeah, it's less politically incorrect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the limitations we had back in the day is that a lot of people still had 128K CoCos and floppy drives with 35 or 40 tracks, and you can't do a really good boot using that. Period.
Right.
End of discussion. So now that you can just assume you're going to have a CoCo SDC with 128 meg hard drive image, you can have all the commands already on there instead of picking and choosing which ones you can fit. And you can also assume 512K, I think, these days, because people, even if they don't have 512K, can run an emulator. So we can now just presume 512K and a hard drive with 128 meg free is the baseline. Then you can start pre-installing all kinds of stuff and not have to worry about all this weird. I think we can make a master boot that should cover like 99% of everything. And then if people want, custom, they might have a multi-pack with some custom hardware that most other people don't have. They can fiddle with making, adjustments.
Yeah. One of the things I did with my boot, I just figured making the term being the VDG right off the bat, and then loading it that way. So that way I've always got the VDG there. And then my other windows are the 80 column. That way I don't have to worry about doing multiple boots.
Yeah, in my case, I have V1 and V2 is my default VDG windows. Because you can have more than one on level 2 NitrOS-9. You can actually have up to 7 or 8 VDG windows and 16 regular windows.
And Bruce, you've been here for a while. You haven't had much to say. You got anything you want to say or ask about NitrOS-9?
No, I'm just taking it in while I'm coding my Forest of Doom here. It's all good.
That's cool. John Mark Mobley, like probably, yep, is here. He says CoCo Talk is live. Yeah, it's been live for 2.5 hours now. It's about to be dead. But welcome, John. We're glad to have you here. We just wrapped up our introduction to NitrOS-9, and we got a couple other sneak peeks at a few other things too. Some world exclusives. Yeah, good times. So I think we've beat this one to death. I think this has probably opened the door and for more people to hopefully be interested in this. And maybe we get some more people with some additional expertise join us in a future call where we'll do, we'll take it some more in-depth stuff down the road. Maybe the next time we talk about this is when we have the standard image. Yeah. And we'll revisit this when that standard image is available, and we'll have all the links to that image, and we'll demo that particular image, and that image will be free of things like DriveWire dependencies and things like that, and so it'll be kind of stock vanilla, good emulator and SDC friendly image, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's the best idea because we're still dealing like I've got one version, Bill's got a different version, Barry's got a different version. So if we can amalgamate and get the most up-to-date stuff of all the different utilities and stuff that other people are completely missing. I mean, if people are familiar with Linux or Linux, however you want to pronounce it, I mean, there's some of the ports of stuff like LS and stuff that you can run too if that's more what you're familiar with and you'd prefer to have. You don't have to use the built-in more DOS-like ones too. So
can you create an alias to a command where dir and ls work exactly the same?
Not technically, though. You can copy it and just rename it.
Okay, or create
it's not like Windows where it doesn't let you open two of the same name file.
Okay,
you can just rename it quickly and load it in. So
you could like copy dir space ls, and you've got now a command that's called ls.
Yeah, though that might get confusing when you get the real ls, which is a full-blown colored directory utility and stuff. But
okay. Now, are there things kind of like the Linux command chmod where you can change ownerships and permissions and things like that, or does it even get that heavy?
Attributes,
like
the
chown
ATTR
and
command.
chmod and things like that?
Yeah, like remember we did the proc and they had the user number that were all zeros because you're the super user when you default in, but if you had other people logging in, you can create ones that are different user numbers. And in fact, you can make it so that the owner can read and write to it, but a non-owner, some other user, can only read it. They can't delete it. They can't modify it.
So there is a file system with permissions built into it? Permission-based file level security?
File you can set, which basically means only one program can ever access it at a time. That's not the default. But and then you have owner read write execute permissions, and you have public read write execute permissions.
Okay. Well, yeah, this has got me interested not only in NitrOS-9 and OS-9, but it's also got me interested in wanting to expand my Linux understanding a little bit better too, because I'm sure there are some parallels and similarities.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be going down a command prompt rabbit hole, as much as it would be nice to know more about OS-9, it's a little bit more applicable to learn some Linux skills that apply to the current world we're in as well too. So maybe I'll mess around and learn some more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, there's some similarities, and there's some utilities, like I said, that were designed around the Unix style ones, which is the Linux stuff. Right. That if you want to stay familiar with that more, so you can actually just start using those. There's lots of ways to skin the cat in NitrOS-9.
Okay, so before we close CoCo Talk, does anybody have either somebody who's in the call or somebody who's watching? Do we have any suggestions or requests on what we should talk about next week?
We can't think of it.
One thing we didn't talk about this time, and we might as well save it for next week because this is already getting to be a really long show, is Ed Snyder's updates to his media player running off the CoCo SDC.
Yeah. And Nick, will you have any, maybe next week, some updates to share with us on Gunstar, perhaps?
Crickets. Updates on your mute button?
Or Bruce Moore, any updates you can share with us next week, perhaps on Forest of Doom?
Well, it's chugging right along. We'll see. We'll see what I got ready by then.
Okay. Any teaser clips we can maybe look at? Some world premiere of a teaser clip or something? Or
I'll think about it.
Okay. If not next week.
And when is the OS-9 version coming out?
Oh my gosh. maybe you can port it for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I might take you up on that if I had time.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have time. Yeah.
William Carlin says, Steve, thanks for bringing everyone together. It's been very informative. I also want to extend my thanks to everyone who called in and participated in the chat. Likewise, William. I'm glad to have you here. Yeah. All right. So, the great thing is that something will happen between now and there's a few things that happened today too, which I didn't even get into, like the warehouse that's caught on fire and the computer club that's lost all of its earthly possessions, which is pretty tragic. And maybe we'll wait for next week to have an update on how all that worked out in the end. Norlander says you could talk about the latest hardware upgrades for the CoCo. That's always something to do. Ed Snyder stuff is always good to talk about. So yeah, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. And then in the meantime, for those of you who do watch CoCo Talk, you can either reach out to me via email or you could leave a comment on any of the videos too. So this is going to be available later to replay. Leave a comment on suggestions for future CoCo Talks as well, and all that kind of good stuff. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for being here, Curtis and David and Grant. And this was Grant's suggestion, so I guess we can thank Grant for suggesting we talk about OS-9. And Richard Lorbieski and Nick Marentes, the head of the OS-9 fan club, Bruce Moore, Rick Adams was here earlier. Barry Nelson was here earlier. Richard Cavell was here earlier. I don't remember everybody else who was on the call. I'm old. I forget things. But it's all good. So, yeah, thanks, guys. And look for the bomb threat video to be released later today. And look for, hopefully, this weekend later on to the Bedlam video. And I'm really curious to see how people react to that to help gauge future productions of Text Adventures to see, what the response is from that. So that'll be interesting. Good stuff. All right, we are signing off. CoCo forever. Gameplay goodness. Oh, you know what? Let's do one more thing before we go. Let's look at the Tandy Assembly website and see if anything else has updated here.
I do have a couple of updates on that one too. So
okay. So right now the main speakers are still the same: Scott Adams, Don French, and Lance Miklas. When we look at exhibitors, we have Steve Strobridge. That's me. We have Mike Rowan. We have Richard Lorbieski of Boysen Tech. Look at that beautiful, it looks like a tree, a circuit tree growing. It's like an organic technological thing. That is really cool. Peter and Alex Satinsky, Mark Marlette and Sandy Weimer of Cloud9, Peter Bartlett and Malcolm Ramey Randy Kindig, Retro Innovations. Ian Maverick coming all the way down from Australia. That is so cool. And Brendan Donahue with the CoCo VGA project. That's great to see that. So that's been updated. Go ahead, Richard. Hit us.
Oh, okay. Number one is I'm going to be a sponsor of CoCo Assembly. I just got the email from them, and I'm also going to be doing a speaker topic about update or options for video with the RGB, especially the SCART cable. And I'm also going to include like the VGA to or RGB to VGA conversion. That I'm going to talk to Ed Snyder about that. So also include that, and also composite video, and try to demystify and help people, come up with try to come up with some kind of clear the confusion and see what people can use for their CoCo 1s, 2, and 3s. Okay.
That's much needed, much appreciated. I saw Bruce Moore had posted some pictures of him connecting his CoCo 3 with your SCART to HDMI umbilical cord there. So that is pretty cool. That was based on Barry Nelson's design?
Yes. And I'm going to modify it just slightly a little bit more. I was meaning to send a second version to Bruce, but I came up with some more ideas, and I said I'm going to hold off on this. And I'm also the conversion, the HDMI conversion box, the ones that have been coming out of China, it's kind of a hit and miss, and so I'm waiting for one. I just got one in yesterday, and I want to test it out thoroughly. So before I send it to Bruce,
you know what they say about HDMI converters that come from China, don't you?
Yes. What?
15 minutes later, you want another one?
Yes.
That's a bad Chinese food joke. Okay. Ba-doom.
Hey, we're loving the cable you already sent, Richard. It is continuing to work, and we're having a lot of fun with it. Thanks.
Oh, cool.
So let me ask you a couple dumb questions about that. Can your SCART cable to HDMI, can we get audio through that as well, where we don't need to use a secondary audio source?
Yes, you can. On the SCART box, the one that I've been getting has a audio out, so you can hook it up to headphones. You can hook it up to another audio source if you want to. I haven't tried it on. I don't have an HDMI with the audio. I haven't tried it out that way, but I'm pretty sure it'll work.
Richard, you know what? I plugged into another machine over here, and I was like, okay, now I got to plug the audio in, and then the audio was working. And
was it? Okay.
So the audio did come through the HDMI. I was thrilled.
So I was confused about this because I'm just trying to remember. Did Tandy with the CM8, did they pass audio through their RGB cable where sound came directly?
Yes, it did.
So that is an analog audio source already in the RGB bundle.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pin 6 or pin 7, something like that, I think.
Right, it's a mono signal, and it's the same exact signal that comes out of the back of the CoCo 3.
So without needing a second set of wires, it's definitely possible to take that RGB feed. Now, did SCART support audio? Because I don't know that much about SCART.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it supports left and right channel.
Okay, so SCART, I think David Ladd was telling me, is basically it's an analog version of HDMI.
Yes, and the other advantage with SCART is that not only could you use the CoCo 3 if you have like a Sega Genesis, a Sega NES, or any of the other systems, you can actually use that as well and hook them up.
Because they all had like a stock RGB out as well.
Right.
Now the actual connection is different. Most of them had a standard connection like the CGA monitors had, didn't they? The CGA and EGA monitors.
Some of them did. I don't know. I'd have to look at them, but they were usually the DIN or the DIP connector.
Okay, so that
cables.
could be easily adapted to use your cable.
Yes.
Or your cable could be adapted to those.
Well, it's not the cable. It's the you have to get a different cable, but you would still use the same box.
Okay, so that same box that is SCART to HDMI becomes a universal solution.
Correct.
Okay. No, that's cool. And so another thing too, when we were doing my CoCo repair, Sockmaster, and I don't remember if this was on camera or off camera, but one of the things he was saying was if he had one wish for the CoCo 3, he had wished they would have done their composite better, because it's just it's a shit version of composite, basically, true Radio Shack fashion to save a nickel. So you're talking about composite mods and composite add-ons. How feasible is it to put a nice, clean, proper composite output on a CoCo 3?
Basically, what happens on the composite going to HDMI basically is just it's an up conversion, and you're going to get the same. Once it's kind of crap, you're just upscaling.
Well, I'm not talking about converting to HDMI. I'm just talking about just replacing the crappy Tandy composite with a better modern composite that conforms to the proper signaling and quality standards.
It would take modding the CoCo 3. I mean, it's something that can possibly be done, but I just, one of the things I don't really like doing is modifying hardware that way. But I mean, unless you just plug it in. But
the CoCo 2 composite mod is whatever you would do would be really clean and a proper output of composite, right?
Correct.
Okay, I might be interested in maybe bringing something to you to have modded at. Are you going to be providing any services, any assembly or upgrade mods at?
Yeah, I'm going to be driving up there, so I'm going to bring up a lot of my equipment up there. So yes, I'll be able to do that.
I might be interested in getting a CoCo 2 composite modded. So cool. Well, things to look for. Now, when you say you're a sponsor, obviously that means you're giving them some money.
Yes, I'm gonna. Okay. Yeah, it's you have the front banner. It says with the sponsors.
Oh, that's neat. Well, that was nice of you to do.
Plus, they do the commercials, and they throw rose petals when you show up and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
Great, rose petals. That's great. Yeah, one of the things when I was talking to Mike Rowan and I was asking, are they going to have like a no minimum bid auction? And they are, but right now the only auction items that we know for sure that will be there would be whatever they bring themselves. So basically the founders of Tandy Assembly are donating some of their own personal possessions for the auction to kind of get the ball rolling. And so I'm going to see what I can find too, of some spare things I have to bring to the auction, because it's going to be nice to have some of the things that we're used to from CoCo Fest, but there really is no pipeline for auction inventory like there has been in Ohio for years and years and years. I'm sure the club has just got things on shelves that they collect all throughout the year. Being that this is the first event, I can't imagine there being a ton of things to auction, but I would be great to be surprised to see a shit ton of things to bid on, because I'm driving too, so I'm looking forward to bidding on some stuff. And if I have to get violent to win something this time, I will.
Yeah, I would definitely like to pick up some Model 2, Model 3 stuff. I just don't like having that stuff shipped.
Yeah,
especially Model 3 stuff, because when I worked at Tandy Computer Assembly, no pun intended there, they had problems with the video tubes actually falling out of the top case when they were shipped. And so I'm just afraid if something like that got shipped, it would crack and break and have to repair those. So
very, very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to Tandy Assembly. I guess I now need to book my room. I mean, I've done all my everything else, like I've requested to be a speaker as well, and I have an exhibitor table, and so I'm there listed as an exhibitor, and I've paid my dues for the table. But yeah, I guess I now need to call the hotel and reserve my room, which I think we still have time, but I might as well do that too. Yeah, and that's great to see Ian Maverick come down from Australia. Maybe, hey Nick, maybe you can get a ride with him. That's kind of cool, though. So I know Ian has done a lot of cool hardware developments for the TRS-80s, as like floppy drive converters and controllers and all kinds of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got going on. Cool. All right. Well, another CoCo Talk is in the bag. We'll have more things to talk about next week. William Carlin had mentioned we should cover Bill Pierce's M-Shell in part 2. That project has great potential to be a directory opus for NitrOS-9 get more into DriveWire 4 as well. So yeah, we got more things to get into. What I need to do now is I need to order a new USB to serial adapter, because all the ones I have are not compatible with Windows 10, or else I would have loved to have just added DriveWire to my computer and had it running and get the real-time clock from DriveWire. But thanks to Microsoft, I've got 2 or 3 different USB to serial adapters and none of them work anymore. So I got to find one online that's Windows 10 compatible. And yeah, we definitely need to revisit DriveWire and do another, better look at DriveWire, both on a real CoCo and on a virtual CoCo. So yeah, good suggestion, William Carlin. Thank you. And another great CoCo Talk. So we'll go ahead and sign off with my favorite saying, which is, you may only be young once, but you can be retro forever. So stay retro, everyone. And we'll see you next week on CoCo Talk. Thanks, everybody in the call.
Later, all.
Later, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.